Ready to go. No stranger to anyone, Mr. Bomber is here with us today at our request. We're so glad to have you here to help us. All right, guys, we're starting. Yep. All right, please take it away.
I've been called strange, but never a stranger. Anyway, thank you. My name is Kevin Bomber. I am the executive director of the Colorado Municipal League. I think most of you, all of you know us, but I will spend a little bit of time just talking about some, first of all, just some introduction and snapshot of municipalities and what the league is, and then we'll move through some stuff pretty fast. Are you driving? Okay, go for it.
Oh, and let me also just say, we have one council member who is online, and we have one who's absent, so
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. I'm not taking roll, so, okay, but I see Dave online. So first of all, next slide, please. Just a snapshot of Colorado cities and towns, and starting out with what is the Colorado Municipal League. The Colorado Municipal League is nonprofit, nonpartisan association of almost all the cities and towns in the state. There's one we just lost that in Hartman. If anyone has ever read the Denver Post article recently on the poor town of Hartman, and a couple other that are officially incorporated that haven't had an election or done anything in years and years and years. But essentially 100% of the municipalities in the state are members of the Colorado Municipal League, which is governed by a 21-member board elected by members at our annual business meeting. At the annual conference, they're elected at large across 4 population categories. And that has been roughly our governance structure, added a few board members over time, but for the over 100 years that the league has been in existence. We have a staff of 17, pretty lean and mean, and that is going to shrink and then grow a little bit here in the near future, but and then grow a little bit more. I can say it now. It's the staff knows and all that, but I will be hiring a deputy director later this year. You'll appreciate this. It's tough to be the CEO and the COO at the same time, and the board was very supportive of that. Let's go to the next slide. This is a very detailed slide, but this is a snapshot, top-level view of our strategic plan that starts with our mission, vision, and values. Those are really important to us. There's this aha moment if you've ever been part of a strategic planning process. You know when you got a good one, especially your vision. I mean, empowered cities and towns united for a strong Colorado. I'll tell you that the big debate was whether or not there should be a comma after towns. There shouldn't be, but it still is in there. And our strategic plan is then laid out starting with our key priorities of protect, engage, and lead. The goals under each of those key priorities then leads to, as you know, when you get into the nitty-gritty, there's a lot of deliverables there. The board and I will be making some effort to refresh this. It's been a little bit static, although these are still great priorities and goals, but you know, we're growing, municipalities are changing, we're certainly seeing a lot of different challenges, and our plan will have to go along with it. Next slide. So the league belongs to our members. It really does. It would not exist without our membership, as unlike some state leagues in the country, our revenue primarily comes from our municipal members, about 70% of our operating revenue on a year-to-year basis. Some of my colleagues, that scares the heck out of them. I'm like, I always know who I'm working for. And each one as important as the other. And it really not only exists because of our members, but for our members. Like, we have no other mission other than to serve cities and towns in this state in multiple different ways. Our mission statement talks about it, but it's essentially advocacy, information, and training writ large. The league building at 1144 Sherman Street, if you've ever been there, it's your headquarters of everything municipal, both literally and figuratively. Even if you're not on municipal business and you find yourself hanging around Capitol Hill and you need a place to come in, just let us know, and make a phone call or whatever, hang out in the municipal center, and watch TV or something, read a book. It really is your home away from home. I have been at CML almost as long as that building has been in existence, so it is very near and dear to me. I should have mentioned at the outset, I just started my 8th year as executive director, but have been at the league previously in an advocacy role before I was executive director since 1999. So that building being 1998, it is as much my home as any home as I've ever lived in, and it's yours as well. Next slide, please. So CML has a lot of resources available to you. I think you're probably largely familiar with these, but if you're not, there are great opportunities to engage. We'll be cramming in some district meetings, and I mean cramming them in because the legislature started a week late, which means they're ending a week late, later than they should. So we have 14 district meetings to get in a 3-week period after the middle of May. I think one night, May 28th, we have 4 on one night. But the District 3, which is where you're in, will be in Arvada this year at Westwoods Golf Club. It's a little bit of a hike from here, but it's a great location. I hope you'll be able to attend. I think that is actually May 27th or May 28th. Keep an eye out for those and sign up. Those are the really great opportunities to network. Our annual conference is, for those that have been, is definitely a great way to network. Go to the next slide. So we were in Breckenridge last year. We'll be not too far away in Westminster this year. This will be our last, save for one more shot out at Gaylord Rockies, but this will be our last shot in the Front Range for a while, and look to be exclusively up in the mountains, starting with Keystone, our newest incorporated municipality. Now that it's incorporated, can host a conference up at their conference center, part of our self-imposed rules, and we've got 2 future conferences coming up there. So hopefully you can come to Westminster. I know it's not as exciting as going to the mountains because you're still in the metro area, but Westminster is very excited to host us and you. I used to live right behind the Westin. I see everything that they've been doing to the area up there, and I sure encourage you to come. And the conference lineup looks spectacular this year. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Quick little snapshot of municipalities in Colorado. This is just a tad outdated. It comes from our annual report from last year, and we did get an update in our overall Colorado population that we're now over 6 million people. And it's still growing, not as fast. The rest of that largely stays the same percentage-wise. And what really matters is 75% of the state's population lives within a municipality, and almost all of those with just a small number left over live in a home rule municipality. And there are 108, possibly 109, depending on where Cripple Creek goes here. They're in the middle of a Charter Commission discussion right now, and expect them to be on the November ballot with a charter question. There's others that are talking about it and interested. Always the fun part, though, is the trivia. After you get past 108 home rule municipalities, 164 statutory municipalities, does anyone know what the one territorial charter town is?
It's up in the mountains. It's like Leadville.
I heard it over here. Someone... But you know. It is the town of Georgetown.
That's it.
Now, the only reason I mention it is because as a home rule municipality, the fact that Georgetown is still a territorial charter municipality, there's a connection there. That means that Georgetown is operating under the charter that existed prior to statehood, which means over 150 years old, right? And every municipality at the time of statehood was operating under some charter, and most then switched over to the statutory framework once established in Colorado Revised Statutes. The Home Rule Amendment came along later. The Home Rule Amendment came along because, among many other things, the state legislature and more than one governor was playing political football with Denver's charter, actually changing it, because in order to change a territorial charter after statehood, you have to run a bill down at the State House. And it actually came to people pointing guns at each other, Denver police and firefighters pointing guns at state militia outside of the old Denver City hall that is long gone. And fortunately, cooler heads prevailed, but all of that meddling by the state and local affairs was that and the progressive movement was a great incentive for a referred question to voters that created the Home Rule Amendment to the Constitution in 1902, and and here we are today, trying to hang on to it and making sure that everyone understands what it means at the State House, but because it's constitutional, as you all know, it matters more what happens in the court of legal opinion than it does in the court of political opinion. I gave up a long time ago trying to convince legislators that they had a duty to uphold the Constitution, including that part too. So that's a quick snapshot of CML, our members. If nothing else, this slide just demonstrates we are a statewide organization, and it doesn't matter if I'm here. I was just telling someone about a trip when we were doing our 2023 100th anniversary tour. After everyone else, we went to every municipality that year and visited, brought cookies and tchotchkes and all of that, and to thank them for being members of CML. So all 271 at that point in time. And I knew that, Telluride would be one of the ones that people went to first, and the mountain towns. And I predicted, and I was correct, that it'd be me bouncing around every dusty corner of the state, visiting places like Campo, and saying, what the heck, driving down and crossing into Oklahoma just to say I did it on that trip. We are a statewide organization, and that was really enlightening, as well as some of the activities we do now, and just learning about what our members are doing, what their challenges are. And believe it or not, I think you probably will, finding out that municipalities, no matter where they're at, no matter what size, have more in common than not. We like that because that gives us even more purpose. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So one of the things that the League does on the advocacy information and training, I think this is both the information and the training part, is spend some time, particularly in this day and age when we don't have a lot of great examples of civility, decorum, and process coming from the state or federal levels, of bringing that home and helping municipal elected officials be as effective as possible in your roles. And it's not easy, but it's really some back to basics. So let's go to the next slide and just talk about what it takes to be a municipal elected official. Now, hopefully you can say, yep, I'm doing all of these things. But oftentimes I've had folks say, you know what, that was really helpful. There's probably some opportunity for me to improve, something I can do more. Obviously, dedication, knowledge, substantial time commitment. It's not for the pay or the gratitude. I know that. I thank you. I don't know if you hear it a lot from folks, but you do it because you care about your communities. You have an opportunity to make a difference, which can be rewarding. It can be frustrating too, but the opportunity to serve your community and help be part of implementing a vision for the future is and can be very rewarding. You got to take the time to do it. You have to be able to balance the needs of the city with your own personal views and learning about municipal government in Colorado. Next slide, please. I always have to say that I'm not an attorney. I've been mistaken for one from time to time, but I'm definitely not your attorney. So anything that looks or sounds or smells like legal advice, it's not. That is what you have a city attorney for. And also use resources, staff, and on your own time to read and understand your home rule charter, looking deeper into Colorado's revised statutes. Just a little light reading. When's the last time you took a scan, just picked a few pages out of your ordinances and asked questions about how a certain ordinance came to be or how it's been implemented? And then again, using your staff for as a resource, and I'll talk more about staff's important role in helping you all do your job and look good doing it. Let's go to the next slide. So some desirable leadership skills. No one can check every box, but these are things that hopefully you can identify with both individually and organizationally. And you can see those traits and encourage them in others. If you have the right stuff, you probably do because you're here. But look at each one of those and say, am I consistent? Am I confident? Am I willing to work cooperatively? And if you say, well, maybe not, or be honest with yourself, then there's an opportunity for growth. No one comes in to any job, to any role, with all the tools that they have to be successful. It's a learning opportunity. Next slide, please. Always be mindful of all of the hats you wear as an elected official. They all matter. They are interrelated, but also have separate and distinct roles. And we'll get into some of these just a little bit. Particularly a note on something that often I see governing bodies, cities, and towns sort of forget in the hubbub of everything, and that is you're also representative of the city as an employer, and that is, like I said, not something that people think of first. Next slide. So I always want to talk a little bit about the difference between governance and administration. Go ahead. And so what the takeaway from this portion is that you have in this role responsibilities that are significantly different from probably what you do in your day job. You have to recognize that, particularly if you're in your first term. We'll talk about what it means to be newly elected and recognizing the differences. But you always want to come in, whether you're brand new or not, and say, I want to be as effective as I can, and I don't want to screw things up at all. Maximize your effectiveness, minimize your liability, because, and oftentimes that comes down to understanding the difference between governance versus administration, how you conduct yourselves, and how the conduct of the body as a whole happens in this space. Next slide, please. So governance versus administration. So are you focusing on the bigger picture, governance of the city, or are you focused on administration? Management and governance are not the same thing. You have a manager, and this is where oftentimes I see folks getting themselves into trouble, or maybe creating angst or confusion. Governance is policy setting, big picture, longer term. You're thinking about what the city should look like in 5, 10, 20 years, not if someone is doing the job they're supposed to be doing that's not one of your direct reports. Now, the one exception that is fact-based is quasi-judicial. Like I said, you've got a city attorney who will and does explain to you what your very specific and very, very important roles are on fact-specific, case-by-case decisions in your quasi-judicial capacity, and how to stay out of hot water in understanding your role separately. But aside from that, you are big picture thinking, right? And your oversight of your direct reports is your role as a body. It is not each individual member's role to direct your direct reports. So it's good to talk about your methodology, your theory, your philosophy of how you want to work with your direct reports and the jobs that they do. Next slide, please. So it's always about time horizons. Yours should be the farthest out. If you're looking at a street in town and you see a pothole and you're calling someone and saying, hey, I need to get that pothole fixed because someone complained to me, there is a right way to do that, but that is generally a little bit out of your lane. You're thinking longer term. Is the streets department got adequate funding in order to be able to fill the potholes? Do we have a plan for our streets plan, and what does that look like? And this is where your management, supervision, and frontline employment take the policy that you set and implement it, and will ask you for help where it is needed. So just always remember that if you are working at the top of this line, you're in the right space. If you're working down in the bottom line, then you are jumping the line a bit. Next slide. So one or many, and this is, I sometimes get questions about this. I'll try to anticipate just with some of the questions I've got, what you might be thinking. So does the council speak with one voice? The question I get is, well, does that mean we have to agree on everything? No. What it means is that as a council, everyone comes in, I'll talk more about this with your specific viewpoints, but when a decision is made, do you say to someone that asks, what happened tonight? Well, the council voted to pass this ordinance. The council directed staff to, or do you say, I don't know what they're doing. I oppose the whole thing and I think it's terrible. It is hard to do, and it's okay to say, I did not support the decision, but I do support ensuring that the policy that the majority of the council has agreed to is supported, so there is no uncertainty going forward. Next slide, please. And this gets really, really important. Now, I don't play CIRSA, and I don't think I need to here, but I know that they have to come in and have a liability discussion sometimes that to make sure people understand that if you go too far outside of your job description as a municipal elected official, particularly when you cross over into management, trying to independently direct staff, particularly those that aren't your direct reports, not doing things that are based on policy decisions that are made here, it actually can create a liability exposure for the town and, if pervasive enough, for members individually. So that's all I'm going to say about this. I shamelessly stole some of this from, most of it from CIRSA, so full props to them. If you ever need a very good liability discussion, CIRSA's the one. Next slide, please. So, roles of elected office. I've got a slide on each of these. I'll move through this pretty quickly, but every one of these is going to be like, well, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, but we'll unpack a couple of them just a little bit. So next slide. So your role, number one, is to set public policy as a governing body. You take information, you are asked to make decisions, you make decisions, and again, hopefully then support them irrespective of where you landed for or against. And what that means is you have to have an understanding of what's possible. Thinking down the road and what your individual and then collective interpretation is, what's the best interest for the public, best interest for the city. Next slide. Everyone expects professionalism. Not everyone practices it all the time, even though if they expect it, but they certainly expect you to do it. And back to that civility and good governance theme, like I said, we don't see a lot of other examples. I still believe that city council chambers and town hall chambers are where it's going to get a rebirth if it's ever going to happen. We have to lead from the local level and show people that there can be disagreements without being disagreeable. So be professional, respect order and decorum, in the meeting, outside of the meeting, avoid your personal commentary, and again, I can't ever say it enough, utilize the expertise from the professionals that you employ at the city. They're here because they care about the city, and they're here because they're the best of the best. Next slide. Be accountable. Accountability we talk about a lot. It was a theme that came up in our staff retreat, and we talk a lot about what that means. You are accountable to the people that elected you, and depends. Some you have at large, you have districts, whatever. You're accountable to everyone because whether, particularly in wards and districts, if maybe someone didn't vote for you because they live in a different ward, but they're still looking at you, hoping you make the right decision, right? And then part of that means just hearing them out, giving them a chance, letting them express their viewpoints. Hopefully they do it respectfully. They don't always do that. We certainly understand that. But that engagement, their involvement is essential for the legitimacy of the governing process, particularly if you accept it and even if you don't do what they want, just people want to be heard. Next slide, please. Be a big picture thinker. Again, you're thinking mostly long-term decisions. Sometimes will have very short-term impacts for sure, but all of this is about what's going to be the best for the city years from now. You may have some fiscal constraints. You may have operational or political constraints. Try to think beyond that and think about what's possible in the future. I'll butcher it, and I can't remember who said it, but you are planting trees in your job now that you will never sit under the shade of. The decisions you're making, sometimes they seem maybe menial or whatever, but they're important, and it's setting a course for something that 20 years from now, would look different if things had gone a different direction, and that's a cumulative thing. Next slide. You want to be a good steward, obviously, of resources, but also of the public good. You may be in a position where you are absolutely forced to make an uncomfortable decision that you know is right for the greater good, and have a bunch of folks staring you down for it. Now, I would not call the General Assembly the greatest example of stewardship and common good all the time, but I did get to witness. I was down for the first budget bills that were going through. I took one for the team and testified on them this morning, a couple that we're opposed to, and I watched the significant pain that both majority and minority members of the Appropriations Committee were feeling by having to make some very draconian cuts to some very important programs because their job is to balance the budget. How they got there is a whole other thing, but it's important. It's important to acknowledge that I may have to make a decision that's going to hurt, but it's the right thing to do. Next slide. Be an advocate. So I mentioned someone comes up to you and says, there's a pothole in front of my house. You're not going to call someone to come fill it. You're going to say in the right way, here's who you need to contact, or let me make sure that someone at the city knows and they will get in touch with you. You're a customer service representative. You're connecting people with the things that the city does, and maybe more importantly, with things that may lie on maybe someone else's responsibility. Whether you like it or not, residents see you as the ones that can make things done, and they may not always understand the distinction that the mayor can't just wave a magic wand and make something happen, and neither can anyone else individually. It's a team effort, but you're most visible, so they see you as the one that they want to go to. So knowing how to take information and then help them, at least get an answer is really important. Next slide, please. Community builder, again, you're looking forward, you're looking for opportunities to have new relationships, new opportunities to work with folks that you may not necessarily always think about working with, and provide a forum for others to witness that and participate in it. Next slide. Well, there's no maybe votes. You got to decide, and in the rare instance you may have to abstain. That's one thing, but it's at some point you're going to have to say I'm for that or I'm against it. So own that. Be decisive and just. Be prepared to explain your decision, even if it's uncomfortable, and then stick with it. That's back to that confidence thing on one of the roles. Next slide. Provide oversight. Again, you hire the manager and other direct reports in the system. Your direct reports are accountable to you, and just back to that governance versus administration. Just always be aware if you're operating in the right lane. Are you focused on governance, or are you focused on management administration? And last but not least, the most obvious one of them all, be ethical. Does the city do you have your own ethics policy Yes? Code, yeah. So read and learn your ethics policy. Amendment 41, if we believe the Constitution, doesn't apply to, and we've had to support litigation against that, where the Independent Ethics Commission doesn't apparently see that sentence in Amendment 41. But read and learn your ethics policy and follow it. If CML and CIRSA also co-author a small booklet. If you've not got it, let me know. It's a freebie. It's just a great short read on ethics, and can never talk about or think about that enough. Okay, next slide. So big picture stuff. The public expects and deserves your best, all of these things are part of what their expectation is. Again, I know that it is difficult because you often would like to have the folks that are having this expectation of you, also exhibit good behavior. It doesn't always happen, but no matter what, you have to stay true to these expectations. Next slide. Okay, so that's more the big picture as a body, even though there's individual stuff in there. Personal conduct also matters, and so we'll talk a little bit about that. Next, let's go to the next slide. So I mentioned we'll talk a little about if you're newly elected. Some of these should have arrows that go both ways, but if you're new to the council, if you're a resident, well, now you're an official, and you may have been on the outside, but you are now very much an insider. No matter what. The minority-majority part can shift. It's important to recognize when that happens. It may not be the same for every issue, and hopefully isn't, but it's important to know where you're at on that. You may have been a critic of everything that happened here, but once you're on that side, you're a representative. Even if there's ordinances that were adopted that if you can say, well, I would have voted against that if they were there, they're your ordinances now. And you have a duty to uphold them, and if you want to propose changing something, that's fine. But you represent everything that came before you and the city as a whole. And I always like to say, if you came in as a single issue proponent, it's going to be really boring because you may not get many chances to get really engaged on that one issue. Because you got to make all these other decisions that are important to other people. So make sure you, no matter what, and it's hard sometimes, especially when it's something you're really passionate about, but all the decisions that aren't on your list of top issues, they're important to someone. Next slide. So conduct matters because it impacts your effectiveness. Absolutely. I used to try and make this joke, but it didn't work. If anyone's ever played The Sims or had kids that played The Sims, they had these little things above their head that spun around. They were green when they were in a good mood and red when they were in a bad mood. And if you did the wrong thing, it made them happy to sad. It's the same thing. So if you're walking around with a dark cloud all the time, and particularly as it relates to what you're doing in the chamber here or your business with the city, that's going to impact, that rubs off on other people. And so it's hard sometimes to be, bubbly and happy. Trust me, I know. But it is important that your conduct, your demeanor, your behavior, it matters because it does impact how other people respond to you and your ideas, especially if you've got good ideas. You want to be heard. We see it more and more. I just have to say it: the incivility and divisiveness. It has no business in nonpartisan municipal government. And we're seeing it more and more. That's why we had a civility initiative a couple of years ago. We keep talking about it. So just make sure that you're doing everything you can. And just, you can think about the people that you disagree with the most and just say, how can I have a conversation such that we could have a beer afterwards, and still just disagree vehemently, but not let that residue stick, because you're viewed as leaders of the city, no matter what. And again, you represent the city as employer. And guess what? The employees are seeing it too. They need to see you be effective. And they need you to set the example and the tone for the entire organization. Next slide. So again, you have actual and perceived powers. Just remember, you can never take off that municipal elected official hat. Can't go to the grocery store and say, don't bother me, I'm not the mayor today. I don't want to talk. Nope, doesn't work like that. And particularly in the conversations that you have with people that live and work in the community, you're always going to be seen wearing your elected official hat. Next slide. Okay, this is the one thing I like to focus on the most, and I mentioned this a little bit. So if you think, I won't make you close your eyes or anything, but if you think about when you got elected, you probably had some things that you think, this is the thing or things I want to do the most. I want to get this done. I want to make sure, this is why I'm running. I'm passionate about this. The problem is so did all of your colleagues. And no matter what, I can guarantee you 100% of the time, every time, none of you have an identical list. So that means it's impossible to reconcile that, which means you have to work to reconcile that. No one is going to get everything they want. That's not how this process works. Next slide. So it's important as a body and individuals on the body to recognize what your individual goals and priorities are, what's most important, and also where are you willing to compromise. There may be some things that you say to yourself, I cannot compromise on that. I have to have push for this no matter what. That's fine. Just make sure your colleagues are aware, done in a respectful way. They'll let you know what theirs are, but there's got to be some in there where you're willing to compromise. And as you work through those, knowing that you may come out on the winning end and get your way, convince others to vote with you, you may not. The end of it, that speaking as one voice is important because then you get behind the decision and you say, council voted to. That's important so that your staff has no uncertainty as they go to implement that. If something changes, elections change things, policies change after that, fine, everyone understands that. But you don't want to dig in so hard that you impact as an individual your effectiveness of the entire body. Next slide. Two things define you: your patience when you have nothing and your attitude when you have everything. So a little self-reflection goes a long way. And the best time to do it is when it's hardest to do it. It's when you're having those difficult conversations, when you're divided on something and you're trying to sort your way through it. Next slide. So discussion and disagreement, absolutely part of the process. Got to do it respectfully. No fisticuffs, certainly. No personal jabs. I mean, this isn't the Taiwan legislature or whatever, where you got people jumping over the dais or anything. We don't really have that, but hey, look, I was down, if you read the Denver Post in the town of Hartman, I was there in December, and January is when there was a fight between residents and that assaulted one of the remaining trustees that have all since resigned. So I've seen it as bad as it can get. That's a triple.
And the population is like
50.
50. Yeah, I was going to say 50
Yeah.
people.
Oh yeah, it's not awesome, yeah, that's a whole nother thing. So anyway, and also in the discussion process, it's always good to be succinct, make your point, let other people make theirs, leave the filibuster to the U.S. Senate, and so you can have a crisp and efficient meeting. Don't argue back and forth with each other. I think everyone understands that. And always go through the mayor. Next slide. So if you are in a situation where you have division, perpetual division, look to rules of procedure, rules of conduct. If you have them, you should and probably do review them, make sure that you understand what that process is, and then follow them. Some municipalities have retreats to hash out issues. Facilitated retreats are great. Hopefully you don't need a mediator, but facilitators are always nice, and it's not always necessary, but it does help you work through issues. And also, a facilitated retreat can also be a great visioning process too, when you're talking about the long-term vision of the city and finding alignment. Just always ask yourself if you're accountable to yourself and the council. It's difficult to govern with 5, 7, 9. The slide changes every meeting. I can't imagine some of these cities that have 13 or more, but my goodness, it's turning. Some are getting close to the Chicago City Council, right? But it doesn't matter. It's challenging to govern with a multiple amount of people. Now, this is a very intimate setting. Local government, municipal government is much more so than the State House. Certainly much more so than Congress. So it's important to be accountable to each other because you got to live in this space together for a little bit. Also be aware if there's outside forces that are trying to influence you. Don't give away your authority to someone that may not have the best interests of the entire city in mind. Okay, next one. This happens from time to time, this imbalance of information. If you're doing your own research and coming to a council meeting and saying, well, I've done my own research and this is what I know, you're creating an imbalance. And I'm sure you've had discussions about this, but if there's something that you think is important in order for the council to make a decision, give advance warning, heads up, ask the staff to, can you help me out with this? Or if you have something, give it to staff to make sure that everyone else has the same opportunity to see the same thing that you're going off of. Because it's hard to be able to react in the moment if you haven't had an opportunity to be as informed as someone else. You need to ask yourself if you trust each other, if you've got same split votes all the time, if you're lining up the same way. A perpetual split that always has the same people for and the same people against, boy, you give a lot of authority to that tiebreaker. So finding ways to work through that is important as well. Next slide. And again, back to staff again. Please don't ever think of staff as the enemy. Don't second guess them. Again, with the research, don't come in and say at the meeting, you did this and I need to know right now. Don't blindside staff. Staff is here to help you and make you look good, provide you with the information in order to be effective. So always treat your staff as a precious resource, and they'll do right by you. Next slide, please. Last little bit, very quick, on transparency and public participation. Next slide. It's important to know that, first of all, you've got to have transparency on the mind. Everything that you discuss, public business, should be discussed in here. You're going to have people watching all the time to make sure that you are doing it. And folks like to know what's going on. They want to be, they may not always want to know what's going on, but they want to have the opportunity to know what's going on. How about that? And so everything that's discussed in the public's business should be discussed in public, and because otherwise it erodes public trust and create credibility issues for not just individuals, but for the entire governing body. Next slide. Public business discussed in public. One-on-one discussion is fine, but no daisy chain communication, no group emails. Everyone should understand that just if you're in a group or three or more together, it's not taboo. Just you can't discuss public business because it's not here. So you can all go to the CML annual conference. Some attorneys have their have it noticed. That's where people are going to be, but no public business will be discussed. Some don't. Just listen to your city attorney. Your city attorney will always lead you in the right direction. And you can also read CML's open meetings and open records publication. Next slide, please. Use this council chamber as an opportunity to receive feedback and, as mentioned before, allow for appropriate follow-up and allow residents to raise their concerns. And if they want to, be critical. Don't, even if you privately agree with them, don't say, yeah, you're right. That's a real problem. That's not, there are opportunities to acknowledge concerns without participation in the wrong way. Next slide. Let's skip this one. Next slide. So again, participatory democracy doesn't have to be ugly. I like this quote. We need to, in this country, begin again to raise civil discourse to another level. I mean, we shout and scream and yell and get very little accomplished, but you can disagree very much with the next guy and still be friends and acquaintances. I like the going to get a beer example better, but this is much more eloquent. So on that note, next slide. I mentioned our president's initiative was civility. This link, this material is still good, and we've got civility pledges, we've got sample resolutions, and materials that are, you may want to have staff download and share, just because it's good reading and good to think about. Trying to change the narrative on starting in every city council chamber and with every town board on what it means to be civil, to listen to each other, talk to each other respectfully, and disagree but do so agreeably. Next slide. we piggyback, next slide. We piggybacked on that, next slide. Piggybacked on that the next year with a Back to Basics which was our next president's initiative that focused on municipal leaders not being the loudest in the room, but being the ones that stay focused, make informed decisions, and never forget who they're serving. And that's a snapshot of our April magazine from last year, where we were putting our president's initiatives, the April from 2024, and those are available online. But it is what it sounds like. It's just a refresher on how to turn down the volume, erase some of the noise, and get back to the basics of service and governance. Next slide. I mentioned the Ethics, Liability, and Best Practices. That's the CML CIRSA publication. Some of our members have latched on to Bob's Rules of Order, written by past President, Centennial, now Deputy City Attorney, but City Attorney at the time, Bob Widener. And it starts with the premise that Robert's Rules of Order were never meant for municipal government and provides a different methodology. And it's you can download it. He wrote a whole book on it. You can download the book as a PDF for free. We have the actual book if you ever want to purchase it. And even if you don't implement it, it's really smart. I think he spent 20 years writing it based on all his experience as a municipal attorney, but he got it right. Anyway, you can always go to our website for more info or just give us a call. I'm pretty available, and I've got a great staff that is as well. I think that's the last slide. It is the last slide.
Awesome. Well, thank you very, very much. I think a lot to think about there. Do people have, I know we would love, before we let you go, we do want to hear how things are going at the legislature, and but do people have questions about the presentation or, yeah, Councilor Fisher.
I have a quick question, thank you. So we all did, I think, read this in preparation for tonight.
Excellent.
And there are so many references in there to agreed upon norms and having a retreat to talk about it and to sort of assess whether or not you're following your norms, and we don't do that. Do you think that that's unusual for a municipality?
It's more common than you think, and it just depends. I mean, and this is a very you discussion, obviously, but you know, there are some very high functioning, many very high functioning city councils and town boards that even with people that go off of the governing body, they participate. They've been around. They've been on the planning commission or whatever. The culture is ingrained, and so they kind of adapt fairly quickly. But I think as a body, if you think that, and if you talk about it individually and with staff support, you think that there is some benefit to, hey, let's just get together when, in a setting where we don't have everyone staring at us. We're not in an official meeting. We're just talking about how we talk to each other. I polled city managers a couple of years ago about facilitators that they've used and that councils and boards have liked, and can always provide that. But I think it's an appropriate discussion for you all to have and engage staff and that. So no, it's not uncommon.
Okay.
Yeah.
I saw you pull your mic.
Related to that, I think I thought it was interesting in Kevin's presentation. There was some information about the conduct and really some of the standards related to the conduct. We do have rules of procedure, which is really more like, I don't know, like a compendium of a variety of sources that kind of come together. I wouldn't call it necessarily a single narrative voice always. But what we don't have that you listed in your presentation is rules of conduct, which is different. Mm-hmm. And that might be something worth considering at the next retreat to establish rules of conduct.
Yeah, I think that's a good consideration.
And I've got examples. I just sent some to a municipality that was inquiring about that. Well, actually, I can't take credit. Robert Sheasley got them together for me, and then I shared them and gave him credit then as well. But yeah, I mean, we collect that type of information and share it, and and then it's a potpourri. Things you may like, things you may not. You may decide things are fine, but those are resources that we have.
Yeah, great, thank you. Other questions about the presentation or?
Well, and you can email me anytime if you need follow-up and we need to chat on a phone or Zoom or whatever. I'm
Yeah.
not that far away, I can come down too. Okay, you want to talk about the legislature?
Well, just, I mean, how's it going, Kevin?
Well, so I spent 19 years in that building doing that, and fortunately, got out when I got hired as executive director. I was back there today, like I said, and it was early. There weren't a lot of people in the building yet, but I've been there a couple times, just helping staff with a couple of things. It's just it's depressing, and it's depressing because there are a lot of things going on, and a lot of what's the right way to say this? I've thought a lot about this. Term limits are both wonderful and terrible at the same time. There is no institutional memory, and they are absolutely in crisis mode this year. What is frustrating is, and I'll just talk about this in the scope of housing today. One of the bills, the one I testified on first, was the one that will change what voters voted for in Proposition 123 and say, you know what? Forget what the voters said. We're going to redirect $130 million to backfill the general fund. And make sure that administrative expenses are still fully covered in the State Department, but anything that was going to go out to support affordable housing. And the point that I made was, how can you do that at the same time that there is this dizzying array of preemptions and mandates and illegal executive orders? Sorry, I think they're going to get they're either going to get rescinded by the next governor. I'm going to make it a mission to ask for it, or they'll get knocked out some other way. But aside from all that, it's just how can you try to tell local governments, municipalities, you're doing it wrong, and you need to be punished for it. We don't like participatory democracy. We're making that illegal at the State House now. And you're not experts of your city and town. They know better, right? And then at the same time, say, and we're going to take away the resources that municipalities, 200 municipalities, have signed on to voluntarily to try to create more affordable housing. That is what is going on and why it's a little bit more depressing. I don't know that, at least in the legislature, that's going to change much with the next election. I do think we're going to see a difference with whoever gets elected as governor, and that will change the narrative a little bit.
And I know you've been in contact, and actually, before Kevin leaves, do we have any extra copies of the crier? I would love if we could offer as a parting gift to Kevin a copy of the crier and my mayor's report that expresses some of those exact frustrations, in fact. But I know you've been in contact with many of the candidates for governor in particular, and do you have a sense that it will be better regardless of how that ends up?
At the CML board retreat in July of last year, this executive board said as one of their priorities that they would like to ensure that the league establishes a better relationship with the next governor overall than we have now on our issues. And I just laughed. I said, we could do absolutely nothing and we will have a better relationship with whoever gets elected governor, just because of, and thinking primarily about the most likely candidates. Thank you. They know us, they know you, they know municipal issues. I have talked to each of them individually and personally, and I don't expect that we're going to just be able to say, well, this is what we want, and they'll get, great, done. Doesn't work like that. I would like a chance to be heard and to be included. I've been saying for the past few years now, partnership, not preemption. There is not too much going on in terms of overall policy, and particularly in the Denver metro area, collectively, of what municipalities are trying to do constructively with residents to think about housing, not right now. More housing now is a myth. It doesn't happen, even if the conditions are right. But what about 20 years from now? And where do things grow? Where are they more dense? Are we going to have a transit system that will support that or not? And work in partnership. The Department of Local Affairs has largely been turned into a regulatory agency now. That's number 2 on my list. Got to get that back to an agency that is solely focused on helping local governments and not telling them what they're doing wrong. So I do think that there is reason to be hopeful, at least in a different narrative coming from the first floor. I can't make any promises about the second floor.
I would suggest, though, that going back to the beginning of your presentation, something that is not hopeful, and I agree with what you said, but when you turned back and said, I gave up trying to talk to legislatures about the Constitution and that it matters, and that said it all. And it goes to integrity, okay? And at the end of the day, you either care and whatever principles you have, at some point in time, that principle is going to jump up and bite you in the butt. And when you do, you sit back and say, thank you, may I have another? Or you try to rationalize it away. That's the issue that we have, not just with our General Assembly, but at the federal government and all the way down.
I'll tell you why I gave up, and it's not because it's not worth repeating. We do all the time, as a duty to inform. You are supporting something, you're passing something that is likely an unconstitutional preemption, if you care. And whether they do or not, part of that giving up is, you know what, I'm not going to change your mind. This is going to be addressed in the court of legal opinion if it comes to that, not the court of political opinion. So there's priority of advocacy issues and trying to convince people to believe in that home rule exists in the Constitution. Doesn't always rise to the top.
I have a 30,
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Councilor Robinson.
30 seconds. So I'm Doug Robinson. Thank you very much. One of my assignments here is to serve on the Arapahoe County Opioid Abatement Council.
Yes.
There are 19 of them in the state. We're getting $880 million over the next 15 years.
Yep.
Most of that is going towards treatment. So in the spirit of advocacy, one of the bills we're very concerned about is this THC beverage bill, which is coming to the State House. I just urge CML to look into that and maybe take a position on
Actively
what
working on
might
that, and I
look at
don't
like.
think that's going anywhere, and the federal government is set to close the loophole with the ban later this
The
year.
hemp ban. Okay.
But, yeah, the state closed the loophole in 2021, and this legislation you're talking about is trying to.
And has CML already taken a position on that? I know, yeah, again, against it.
Yes.
Yeah. Counselor Eber.
Thank you, Kevin, for being here today. I appreciate it very much. Quickly wanted to ask you a question about some of these independent, mission type of bills that you're seeing. But the overall scheme of right now and the depressing part is there's a massive budget cut going on.
Yeah.
And is that overriding? Are people recognizing that this isn't the time? Or do you wish that you could see more of a move, that this isn't the year to go be extreme on policy? Right now, we all agree that we have difficult cuts that we need to make. Let's focus on that for this year.
Yeah. Some may call it cynicism, I call it realism, but I predicted at the beginning of the year to the staff, I said, look, I'm sorry, they don't have any money to spend, so you can expect more bills with unfunded mandates and preemptions. And I respect legislators. They are elected to the position or appointed, and they have the ability to introduce legislation. It gets a public hearing, they vote on it, whatever. It's certainly their right. I just know that they're very aware, individually and collectively, that if it has a fiscal note, it's not going to survive. So I have to be able to pass legislation to show folks I'm being effective, and in a lot of cases, it's telling others what to do. Not always local governments, but that's obviously been something we've been talking about. So.
All right, well, thank you so much for being here. It's always a pleasure to have you.
You're very welcome.
And,
Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, have a great meeting.
We will, that clock is a little fast up there. We will call the meeting to order at 6:31 PM. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Heller?
Here.
Counselor Eber?
Here.
Counselor Holen?
Here.
Counselor McGuire is absent. Counselor Robinson?
Here.
Counselor Fisher?
Here. Please rise if you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the Next is audience participation. While the clerk is bringing up the list, in case there are anyone who may be new, I will call the names in the order that you're signed up. When you come to the podium, please state your name and address for the record. We have a limit of 5 minutes per speaker. You cannot cede your time to someone else, so please keep your comments to 5 minutes. We ask that no one in the room interfere with the orderly conduct of the meeting. That means no applause, no booing, no interference with that function of the comments. Please direct all comments to the city council, not to other people in the audience. And most importantly, audience participation or comment is an opportunity for the public to provide your feedback to the city council. It is not a dialogue, and so we will not respond, but please know that we are listening intently to what you have to say. And if there is some necessary follow-up, we may at a later point direct staff to follow up with you if appropriate. And there's no audio visual available. If you have any handouts, please give them to the clerk. Okay, so we will start with Aaron Svoboda.
Council members, thank you so much for your time tonight. My name is Aaron Svoboda. I'm not a resident of Greenwood Village or Cherry Hills Village, but my uncle Jerry and his wife Andy were. For 32 years, Greenwood Village was their home and community, just as Cherry Hills is the home and community of so many. A few nights ago, I sat at my family's Passover Seder, the Seder that Jerry planned to be at. But instead of laughing and celebrating with Jerry, we stared at an empty seat, left there very purposefully to convey the absence we all felt. Now Jerry and Andy are both gone, an entire household wiped off the face of the earth, not by illness, not by time, but at an intersection in the neighborhood they called home for more than 3 decades. I've heard some of the arguments against action, and I respect them, I really do. It's never happened to me is a big one. People have driven the intersection of Franklin and Bellevue for years, crossed it literally 1,000 times, and have been fine. But here's what I've come to understand. We often judge ourselves as people on our best days, and thank goodness we do. The days where we're rested, focused, and unhurried. On those days, yes, we're careful. We can see easily what's coming. But we don't always get to drive on our best days or drive among others on theirs. We drive on the days that we're late to pick up our kids, the days we're running behind for a meeting, or maybe had a painful argument with our spouse. The days our minds are somewhere else entirely. A day not too long ago when I was behind the wheel and could not stop thinking about my uncle who had just passed away. I know I was not as focused on the road and driving as I should have been. Those are the days we need to plan for. Those are the days when we need our infrastructure and engineering to serve us, not our best days, our human days. And to believe it will never happen to me or to my spouse or to my children is very human, so much so that it's a cliche, but we have to get past that. I work in oncology. I'm a medical physicist, and I want to speak directly to the question of gathering data and investigating this situation further because I know that issue is coming and I respect it deeply. I've built my career on investigating things further. When someone comes to a doctor that's not feeling well, we start with the least invasive tests, often a blood test. We proceed methodically, not wanting to be more invasive or cost the patient more than is necessary. Sometimes those early results are inconclusive, so we keep digging. Maybe we order an MRI. And when the MRI comes back showing a brain tumor or a CT showing a lung nodule pressing against an airway, we do not order more tests. We do not say, let's continue to study this. We immediately transition from gathering data to deciding what to do about the problem. 2 people are dead at the intersection in less than 2 years. We have our MRI. The image is clear. I understand this council is hearing from a divided community. people on both sides, and that is an uncomfortable place to be. I want you to know that I understand that. So I want to be clear about what I'm actually asking for. I'm not here to demand a predetermined answer. I'm asking for a process to start in earnest, a serious, collaborative, engineering-driven process in which we honestly examine every option for making the intersection safer. Not us versus them. It's two towns with one problem to solve. We have our MRI results. We know something is wrong. We have 2 fatalities in under 2 years. It is time to move to the next step, together with urgency, with the seriousness this moment demands. This is how we can honor Jerry and Andy, not with a political win, with a process worthy of what was lost. They lived in this neighborhood for 32 years. They knew these streets. They were careful people who I'm sure also thought it would never happen to them until it did. Please, let's determine how this intersection could be made safer, not keep asking if it needs to be made safer. For Jerry, for Andy, and so the next time a family gathers around a table, there are no more empty seats. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Jeff Wilkins.
City Council members, thank you for your time. My name is Jeff Wilkins. I am married to Kylie Presley, the niece of Andy and Jerry Goldberg. I'm here as a family member.
Sorry, could you also give me your address?
Oh, yes. We live at 2875 Gray Street. We're in Wheat Ridge.
Okay, thank you.
I'm here as a family member of those who lived and those whose lives were lost at the corner of Bellevue and Franklin. When we spoke here last November, we had one more family with us here than we do tonight. Since Uncle Jerry's passing, our petition for a traffic light has only grown stronger. We are heartbroken, and yes, we are angry, but we're also here trying to be constructive. I can empathize with those who oppose the light. Many Cherry Hills Village's residents have lived here for decades. Our family has too. Jerry and Andy bought their Greenwood Village home in the early 90s, but a lot has changed since then. Greenwood Village has nearly doubled in population since then. Cherry Hills has grown about 20%. Arapahoe County now has nearly 270,000 more residents. Douglas County grew from 60,000 to 360,000. This area isn't quite the edge of town anymore. Traffic volume, vehicle size, and speed have all increased since then. Life here has changed, and now it's time that the intersection changes too. And yes, change is uncomfortable. The unknown is uncomfortable. But what's worse? Losing loved ones, losing neighbors in a way that could have been prevented. We're asking for one small but vital change, a traffic light that protects everyone. It's too late for our family, but it's not too late for yours. Whose life has to be lost next before action is taken? A child, a friend, a neighbor? 2 members of this community are already gone. That should be enough. Bellevue isn't a dividing line. This isn't city versus city. This is about safety, not politics or optics. Working with Greenwood Village, both cities, both proponents and opposition to find a suitable solution is the only way forward. After we submitted our petition for Andy's light, we hoped for progress, yet here we are. After Jerry's death, my wife and I stood at the intersection placing flowers, watching cars struggle to turn. I timed drivers waiting 1, 2, 3, up to almost 5 minutes, until frustration set in and they took dangerous risks. When 9 out of 10 drivers feel pressured into making unsafe moves, the issue isn't the drivers, it's the intersection. It's inherently flawed by design, with safety measures that would not be standard if this were erected and currently erected. And a traffic light is the simplest, most effective fix. People are being forced to make critical, life-altering decisions under immense pressure. Mistakes are made in the face of that pressure, and lives are being lost as the result. As for concerns about cut-through traffic, Franklin Street North already exists. Adding a light won't suddenly create new routes for new traffic. There are also mitigating measures like a no-through traffic sign, speed bumps that can easily address some of these concerns, but that would be up to a joint commission to decide the best plan forward to address those concerns. We are not here for ourselves anymore. There's nothing self-serving about this request. We're here to prevent more families from knowing the loss ours has endured. Please do the right thing, work together. We just need to do something. Protect lives before another tragedy forces our hands. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's everyone who's signed up. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Okay, well, seeing none, as always, thank you very much for being here. I know it's a difficult topic, but we appreciate your input. We'll move on with our agenda. Next up is reports from members of city boards and commissions. Don't think there's anyone present. Next is the consent agenda.
Move approval of consent agenda items 6A, B, C, and D.
It's moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Karen Fisher. All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. We'll move on to unfinished business, Council Bill 3, Series 2026, amending the 2026 budget by approving a supplemental appropriation for the purchase of specific police equipment and officer wellness initiatives on second and final reading. Director Newman.
Hi, thank you very much. Next slide, please. As a reminder, we had first reading last council meeting. This is to accept the general, or add into our budget the generous donation from Cherry Hills Village Police Association, and then also include that as an expenditure in our budget so we can spend those funds this year, including the specific police equipment and officer wellness initiatives. That equipment is that UTV. There is one slight change in the supplemental. Originally, I had put it into police equipment and then thought better, and that putting it into our police donation expenditure line made more sense and will help us keep track of what we bring in versus what we spend every year. So in the event of a carryover needed, it would be there and we could track it down easier. Any questions?
Thank you for that. Are there any questions? I know we've already discussed this once. I would entertain a motion then.
I move to approve on second and final reading Council Bill 3, Series 2026, a bill for an ordinance of the City of Cherry Hills Village amending the 2026 budget by approving a supplemental appropriation for the purchase of specific police equipment and officer wellness initiatives.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. That's just a voice vote. All in favor?
Oh,
Or no, I'm
sorry.
sorry, that's a roll call because it's an ordinance. Yes, budget.
Counselor Heller?
Yes.
Counselor Eber?
Aye.
Counselor Holland?
Yes.
Counselor Robinson?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Aye.
That passes unanimously. We will move on. Next up, we have two items. There's going to be one public hearing, two different items for consideration as part of that hearing. And just as a reminder to everyone, the way the process works, I will open the public hearing. Director Workman will make a presentation. Council will have an opportunity then to ask questions of staff. Then we will hear from the applicant. They will make a presentation. Council then has opportunity to ask questions of the applicant. We'll open it up for public comments after that, and then there'll be discussions and we'll consider those motions. So with that, I will open the public hearing at 6:45 PM and turn it over to Director Workman.
Great. Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of City Council. The applicant, as was just noted, has submitted applications to subdivide the subject property into two lots and a variance request to the fee in lieu of the land dedication requirement. For the record, please note that the applicant has provided the necessary affidavits verifying that all the public notification requirements have been met. And then just again, for further clarity, there are two separate cases that will require two separate motions from the council this evening, but for brevity and sort of context, there will be one presentation. The variance presentation will be first, since that is a prerequisite of approval for the subdivision application. And there are some title slides, so it will hopefully clearly distinguish between the variance application and the minor subdivision application. Thank you, Laura. The subject property of this application is located just east of University Boulevard across from St. Mary's Academy, just south of us here at City Hall. The property is currently zoned R3 and surrounded by other properties with an R3 zoning. It is just over 2 acres at 2.016 acres in size. Laura? Here's one of those title slides identifying that we'll go into the variance application first. Before we get into the specifics of the application, these items were highlighted in your packet for this evening. They are also discussed within the applicant's narrative. For the benefit of council, just want to touch on three important Supreme Court decisions that have fundamentally shaped conditions that municipalities are allowed to enforce on certain development applications. The first is Nolan versus the California Coastal Commission. This Supreme Court case established that there has to be a rational nexus between a condition of approval and a legitimate governmental interest. The next one was Nolan versus the City of Tigard. The U.S. Supreme Court decided that the conditions of approval not only have to have a rational nexus to a governmental interest, they have to be roughly proportionate to the impact of that proposed development. And then here most recently in 2024, the U.S. Supreme Court extended that not only do Nolan and Dolan apply to conditions of approval for administrative applications, they also apply to any legislatively adopted conditions. So any legislative condition adopted within our municipal code, like a fee in lieu dedication, also has the same rough proportionality and rational nexus threshold that an administrative condition would have. Thanks, Laura. For those that may not be aware, we do have within our subdivision regulations a section of code that requires that with every subdivision of property, the applicant is required to convey to the city an area of land within that subdivision, not less than 7.5% of the gross area of that land. The city may, in its own discretion, accept a fee in lieu of such land dedication of that dedication requirement, equivalent to the fair market value of the land required for the dedication. Laura? And then, so the code has the traditional subdivision regulations, which says applicants are required to meet the 7.5% requirement. The code also has a blanket variance section that applies to any any subdivision application where an applicant can seek relief through the variance process. This is a little bit unique. Traditionally, the Board of Adjustment and Appeals will hear a variance request, but the code specifically gives council the authority in this situation. And there are 5 approval criteria that are identified as part of that variance request. I won't go through each one now. We do have individual slides for those where we'll touch on some of the rationale moving forward. Laura? So in support of the application, the applicant has submitted a narrative requesting the variance, specifically that the projected impact of the proposed development, imposing the same 7.5% dedication requirement to all housing types and applying it, this 2-lot subdivision fails the rough proportionality test, absent the city showing otherwise for a project-specific impact. And they are proposing an adjusted fee in lieu of $37,500 as a means of offsetting the impact of one additional single-family dwelling on the park system. Laura? So these slides are formatted a little different than what council's used to seeing. The actual approval criteria is what's underlined at the top of the slide. Then there's a little A that is the applicant's analysis in response to that approval criteria, and then below that is an S for staff's analysis of that approval criteria. So the first one is an unnumbered approval criteria, which basically talks about the unusual topography or some other exceptional condition or circumstance that hasn't been caused by the subdivider requires the variance. According to the applicant, the scale of the fee in lieu constitutes an exceptional condition or circumstance not caused by the action of the subdivider. And staff's analysis and what Planning and Zoning Commission agreed with is that the requirement was created legislatively and must meet the Nolan-Dolan test for essential nexus and rough proportionality. It's the rough proportionality prong of the Nolan-Dolan test that requires the variance to be approved for the fee in lieu of land dedication. Laura? The next approval criteria is also unnumbered in the code, but it says that granting thereof, or the variance, will not adversely affect the general public health nor have the effect of nullifying the intent of the purpose of the regulation. Within the applicant's submitted materials, they provided 2 methodologies. The second methodology, which was the endowment model, was not used for the requested variance by the applicant. and therefore staff only performed a limited review of the mathematical information that was provided. It's also not a traditional method of calculating a fee in lieu of a fee in lieu requirement. So staff focused on the first methodology, which was the Centennial model, using Centennial's fee in lieu of land dedication requirement and adjusting it for Cherry Hills Village land value. And this is a very brief overview. There's additional detail in your packet, but essentially start out with what is the land valued at per acre. The last time the property was purchased was back a few years ago, and at that time it was purchased for $2.1 million. The totality of the site is 2.016 acres. So if you divide what the purchase price was by the total acreage, it gives you a cost per acre of just over $1 million. In the Centennial model, they would assume that there would be 6 people for a 2-lot subdivision. Within their code, there is a 0.006 acre requirement per resident. So if you take that 0.006 times the 6 residents that would be assumed with the 2-lot subdivision, that gives you a land dedication of 0.036 acres. So then that model says that you take the land value per acre, which is just over $1 million, multiply that by the land dedication requirement, and you get a monetary value of $37,500, which is how the applicant reached that figure for the fee in lieu requirement. The Centennial model is an approach that provides a common approach to determining a fee in lieu of land dedication. There's an assumed value of land and an assumed resident impact. These are traditional inputs into this type of formula. The applicants made a reasonable adjustment to the assumed land value while keeping a realistic assumed resident impact. The Centennial model with an adjusted land value results in a reasonable fee in lieu of land dedication requirement. Additionally, granting of the variance will not adversely affect the general public, as there will still be a fee in lieu of the land dedication paid to the city. The applicant simply requesting a reduction in the fee in lieu of land dedication. The applicant's analysis provided in the Centennial model meets the purpose and intent of the regulation, which is to offset the impact of the additional home on the trail system. Laura. The next approval criteria is related to reasonable protections being afforded to adjacent properties. Essentially, the applicant analysis is that there's still an ability for those residents to use the city's park system now and in the future. The proposed fee in lieu amount will offset any impact to the added household and eliminate a negative impact on the adjacent properties. Staff's analysis was very similar, that the reduced fee amount still provides protection to adjacent properties by assuring that the impact of one additional single-family residential lot is offset, and the fee in lieu would be used as intended by the reference section 17-3-30 of our code. Laura. The next approval criteria is related to adverse impact on the character of the neighborhood. According to the applicant, the offsetting the impact of the added single-family home will ultimately allow the character of the neighborhood with regard to access and use of the park system to remain unchanged. Staff's analysis was that granting the variance will not have an adverse impact on the character of the neighborhood or the physical environment or conditions. The character of the neighborhood is existing single-family residential homes on generally 1-acre lots. That will remain the condition should the variance be approved by council this evening. And there's no change in the physical or environmental conditions as a result of the variance. And finally, for the variance approval criteria, that it's the minimum necessary to alleviate the exceptional condition. The applicant's analysis was that the exceptional circumstance being reviewed by the higher than necessary fee in lieu of land dedication when compared to the added burden of the park system. Staff's analysis was that the exceptional condition for this variance request is the legislatively adopted fee in lieu of land dedication. And through the analysis using the Centennial model, the applicant has demonstrated that the reduced fee in lieu of $37,500 is the minimum necessary to alleviate the exceptional condition. Laura? The Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing on this application on March 10th of this year. There were questions for the applicant related to the assumed property value and other city calculations that may have been used in their consideration. The applicant was able to respond that the $2.1 million was the last purchase price, and that was the best information that was available at this time, and that other cities were looked at, specifically Denver and Greenwood Village were looked at, but those requirements are so customized for those communities that it's not an apples to apples comparison to a Centennial type model. But Littleton was also looked at, and that is more of a traditional model where there's the resident impact and assumed land value and those things. And the calculations for the city of Littleton were actually less than what would be required by Centennial, and so the applicant chose to go with the Centennial model. There was no public testimony for this application, and at the end of the public hearing, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval. That is the presentation for the variance. If there are questions specific to the variance, we can address those now. There's also an opportunity at the end of the subdivision presentation for questions related to the subdivision and the variance or any other questions related. But I do want to give the opportunity in case folks are worried they may forget a question.
So remembering that these are questions for staff, you'll have an opportunity for questions to the applicant and then also an opportunity for discussion later. So questions for staff? Yep.
Yeah, just a clarification. So the map that's green that is in the packet that you also showed us looks like the lot immediately to the south is the same size. But then on here, it looks like that lot immediately to the south is divided at roughly the same place that this lot is proposed to be. So is it a 2-acre lot immediately to the south, or is it 2 1-acre lots? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
And I saw that you said, I heard you say generally 1-acre lots,
Right.
so I don't think that's really, but I wanted to just be clear.
Sure, and right, that's why I did say generally, right,
Yeah.
is because there are certainly exceptions. The lot to the south is a little bit of an outlier in the fact that the house is on the far east lot there, but all of that property is owned by the house that's on the far east side, right? So there's 2 separate lots there with one ownership. So the ownership of that lot is well over 2 acres and may potentially, should somebody decide to subdivide that in the future, likely could accommodate 1-acre lots.
Because it is 3 lots.
It's 2 lots, but 1 ownership. But if somebody wanted to subdivide that lot directly south that's owned by the property to the east,
Yeah,
that is a potential that, I don't have the square footages or the acreages in front of me, but by the eyeball test, there's a good
Yeah.
possibility that that could happen, yes.
okay.
Sorry, I had this, on this, those owners are not shown as the same. It says owner of lot 1 is Kaylin Foote and owner of lot 2 is CKJK Corporation. Well, I don't know. That's interesting. I don't know if it's, but I don't know that it is germane necessarily to, okay, well, so, great, we'll have you, we'll ask that question when you come up to, thank you for that. Okay. All right.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Other
Sorry, I
questions
was
for
looking at it
Director
upside
Workman?
Please.
Counselor Eber?
Thank you, Mayor. If I could do 2 things. Without going into a huge discussion, I'd like to go back through in the discussion about parcel and see if I can figure out again, because it looks to me like we have a larger parcel to the south and a skinny parcel on the north. And the definition of parcel, it seems like we're subdividing 2 parcels here and not 1. So can you explain to me how, well, and I will add that the parcel to the south is not 2 acres by itself. And it gets to 2+ acres by adding the piece to the north. So I'm still unclear about how this meets the requirements for a subdivision of a parcel.
Mayor, just real quick, I think this, and we had a great conversation about this previously. I do think this is a relevant conversation for the subdivision.
Yeah.
The variance is only really about the nexus.
Yeah, can we, okay.
I can hold on that
Okay,
part
great.
then. The other
Thank you.
question that I have for you is, if you look at page 2 of 2 of the sheet that we were handed out, on the back, it does have Lot 1 and Lot 2. Just a question here. It says Lot 1, the western piece, got gross and net, and then Lot 2 has gross and net. I'm just trying to understand for the record again, what the difference is on Lot 1 that makes it have different numbers.
Can we, maybe that should also be discussed as part of the subdivision? Can we hold both of those for that? This is more about the fee and lieu variance.
Well, I understand, but I guess, well, okay. So 2 questions then specifically on the application. We mentioned, I think you said that there were 2 public comments submitted. Neither one seemed to take a position. I think you said that they asked questions of process more than anything else. I guess what I was wondering is, we are creating, is it an additional entrance onto University, or there is already one and it will be shared by the 2 parcels?
I think
And-
that's.
Well, but
these
the
are
reason I
kind of-
ask,
Okay, yeah.
it goes to the valuation, because I'm trying to understand the part of the application that talked about that there were no comments either way. I guess it's surprising to me, I guess I would say, that CDOT did not weigh in about having an additional entrance or an entrance onto a state highway with additional traffic, because I've seen many instances where CDOT objects to additional uncontrolled entrances, I guess, onto state highways. So we didn't receive anything from CDOT?
I'm happy to answer that question now or as part of the subdivision, whichever council prefers.
I think that's probably also
Okay,
relevant to the
If we can mark all
subdivision.
3 of those. I guess the other question that I would have specifically is the valuation that was represented was the $2.1 million, and it's approximately a year and a half old. And we had a representation from the applicant that it's his general belief that property values have gone backwards, if anything has happened. But we don't have any verifiable data that makes us believe that that number is an accurate number. I think, the general sense of $1 million an acre in Cherry Hills is that things have continued to go up. I don't know whether or not the most recent estimate by the county assessor values at that same number, or if we could at least look it up as a comparable data point. But I'm not accusing the applicant of making a self-serving comment, but it's one that we are unable to verify as to the value, which then, as we saw by the math exercise, results in a figure. And, if you nudge it up to a higher level, you also nudge up that 37,500 number to a different number depending on what you do for evaluation. So I guess I am not opposed to the methodology and the discussion of the variance. I am questioning a little bit of the land valuation. So I will leave that question of whether or not we can get a more verifiable data point somehow.
Does staff have any information about?
The information that was represented to us was the last purchase price, which seemed to be as viable a number as any other number.
Okay.
Should council choose to choose something different, that's obviously council's prerogative.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for staff? Remembering that there will be an opportunity for discussion later as well. So these are questions
So
for
I didn't
staff.
mark the page, but I thought there was something in the minutes from planning and zoning that went into detail, and somebody did look up the county, the most recent assessment.
There was discussion about potential appraisal or assessment. I don't recall if there was a specific reference to the current Arapahoe County assessor valuation or not. But that was a conversation that the applicant and Planning and Zoning Commission did have.
Okay. Councilor Robinson?
Question, so this valuation, the 2,000,001, that comes from 2024? That's my understanding, is that correct?
That's my recollection of when they purchased the property.
Other questions? Yep.
And,
Councilor.
and it's not a question, so maybe you want me to hold it, because I've got a comment with regard to the resolution for this variance request.
Yeah, let's hold that for discussion if we could. Thank you. Okay. Now that I've got all my papers all mixed up. Okay, so now we will have the applicant, or no, you want us to do minor subdivision?
That's the way it's structured, but if council has specific questions they'd like to engage with the applicant at this point, that's certainly council's prerogative.
Okay, I just am, okay, we can do it either way. I'm just trying to keep the
Staff and
topics.
right. And that's why it's structured so that staff gets through all the presentation materials.
Okay.
Then do the question and answer with us for both. And, excuse me, and then give the applicant an opportunity to speak and have council ask questions.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Laura. The image on the screen before you is a representation of the proposed subdivision. As Councilor Ebra noted, there are parcels that exist today, 2 parcels that have been unplatted, meaning that they've just been an accumulation of property over the course of time without going through a formally recognized subdivision process. The applicant does have ownership of both parcels, and they're proposing to essentially convert the property from 2 parcels to 2 lots to make it as simple as possible to reorient the dividing line between the parcels, which currently runs east-west, to north-south, and go through this formal subdivision process to create 2 lots. Both lots are over an acre in size. There is a gross acreage and a net acreage because the code makes a provision that for lots that are adjacent to a right-of-way, a portion of that right-of-way can be used towards the overall lot size requirement. And so when we do subdivisions, we have the applicants do both gross and net lot acreage to identify what the property's acreage is within the boundaries, those red lines there, and also what may be accounted for outside of those boundaries as allowed by the code with the adjacent right-of-way. Okay? There is an existing 20-foot Excel easement on the subject property, which is the yellow line on the image in front of you. There's a proposed 24-foot private access and utility easement, which is the green line on the north side of the subject property. The site is currently served by one access point off of University there. While it may be relocated slightly, CDOT did not have any questions or concerns with keeping the one access off of University. Both sites would access University from that shared access easement. And then there's a proposed 30-foot public utility and emergency access easement, which is the pink line on the image in front of you. And then there's the private drainage easement, which is the blue line on the top right-hand side of the image there. That is the outline of a stormwater pond that would serve both Lot 1 and Lot 2 as part of the development of the property. Laura? As part of the application, our code requires that the applicant and the city enter into a subdivision improvement agreement, or SIA. the purpose of the subdivision improvement agreement is to try and memorialize certain obligations that the applicant may have. Within this application, the applicant is obligated for the shared private access drive. The site is required to construct that access prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for either lot, and the maintenance of that private access is a private responsibility. One of the questions that came up from the Planning and Zoning Commission is why make that a requirement at the end prior to CO rather than the beginning? The answer to that is oftentimes during construction, there's large equipment that will be going back and forth on that road, and those trucks will beat up that access. And so usually there's a temporary access with erosion and sediment control. If you drive by a construction site, sometimes you'll see those big yellow mats that have little cones, or you see the big rocks that are adjacent to the right-of-way, right? So in the interim during construction, they do that as a temporary method for access. And then before the property becomes livable, then they will finish and construct a permanent access. As part of this subdivision agreement as well, there are private drainage improvements. Those are also required to be constructed prior to the issuance of certificate of occupancy for either lot. The maintenance responsibility for those private drainage easements are the responsibility of the applicant, but the city does reserve the ability to do maintenance and assess that cost to the owner should they fail to maintain that infrastructure. Utilities for this property will be served by the traditional utilities through their utility easements, and the specific utilities for construction, gas lines, electric lines, phone lines, things like that, will all be done via private responsibility when it comes to the construction process. And then the final component of the subdivision improvement agreement is payment of the fee in lieu of the land dedication. The code requires, pardon me, the code requires that the fee in lieu of land dedication be paid at the time of the recording of the subdivision or as otherwise agreed to as part of the subdivision improvement agreement. As requested by the applicant, the subdivision improvement agreement currently notes that the fee in lieu would have to be paid on or before the 30 days of recordation of the plat. Should that not happen, the SIA has language that would create a lien against the property for the amount of the fee in lieu. Laura? And then there are 8 specific approval criteria for subdivisions in the code. I will try and go through these somewhat expeditiously. The first is that the subdivision meets the definition of a minor subdivision. The proposed application does divide a parcel or parcels of land held in single or common ownership into 2 lots. And the application does not create or result in the creation of a lot or parcel of land that would violate or fail to conform to any applicable zoning or other standard. Laura? The next approval criteria is that the proposed use of a single-family residential lots and the size of the new lots meet the requirements of the underlying zone district. And the existing fence on the property on the north end of the property conforms to fences in Area 3, but it will also be removed as a part of construction of the lots. The next approval criteria is that the subdivision meets or satisfies the applicable requirements of our code. Through the review process, staff and our referral partners have determined that the applicable code requirements have been satisfied. Fourth approval criteria is related to the dedication of streets, whether public or private, and that all public improvements necessary to serve the subdivision meet or exceed our requirements. This application has no dedication for public streets, but there is a private access agreement, which we've discussed briefly as part of this process here. And that, again, that access will ensure access from University for both lots. And the construction of that access is a requirement of the subdivision improvement agreement. The fifth approval criteria is that there's adequate utility easements. There are utility easements existing, and utility easements have been dedicated to the satisfaction of the utility providers. At the time of development, private utility improvements will be required, and those will be the responsibility of the developer. The sixth criteria is that there's no existing trails that the existing public trails located within the lots illustrated upon the minor plat are preserved or new trails are dedicated. There's no existing trails on the subject property, and no new trails have been requested by the city. The impact on the trail system is offset by the fee in lieu of the land dedication as requested in the variance application. Laura? The seventh approval criteria is that the proposed configuration, shape, and arrangement of the layout of the lots is conditions placed on the lots, any streets, create a street that is, don't create a street that's inconsistent or incompatible with other lots. Both lots are generally square in shape. Both lots meet the size requirement, and both will provide access to university. And the utility easements have been accommodated as requested by the referral partners. The last approval criteria, I know you're all holding your breath, is that the proposed subdivision substantially conforms to the goals and policies of the city's master plan. The request is consistent with the vision statement. The approval of this application will not change the character of the neighborhood. It will remain single-family residential with lots that are generally 1 acre in size. It's also consistent with our future land use map. The request is to create 2 lots that are at least 1 acre in size, and both lots will maintain the current R3 zoning designation. Laura? This application also went before the Planning and Zoning Commission on March 10th of this year. There were some questions related to assumptions about the drainage report and some clarification related to easements. Staff was able to respond that the drainage report does make certain assumptions that are industry-based assumptions about certain amount of impervious area per lot. And then that's used to calculate the size of the drainage infrastructure as well as the pond that's in the easement in the corner. As part of the building permit process, the applicant or developer is required to provide a letter of conformance with that Phase 3 drainage report and those assumptions, or they're required to demonstrate within their plans how they will modify the site to meet the assumptions that were made as part of that Phase 3 drainage report. That may include additional swales, ponds, things like that, that then sort of true up the assumptions in the drainage report. And then staff was able to clarify that the easements that are proposed, that exist and proposed, are stacked on top of one another and not next to each other in subsequent order. Again, there was no public testimony as part of the hearing that evening, and the Planning and Zoning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of the application. Laura? As Councilor Eber mentioned, there was some public contact, I guess I would call it, as part of this application. Staff's received 2 phone calls and 1 email related to the application. One resident on the phone requested more information related to the request but did not express support or opposition to the request. One resident on the phone expressed opposition to the subdivision, citing an increase in density. And the email that staff received from the resident asked procedural questions related to the application, did not express support or opposition to the request. Laura? So that would conclude the totality of the presentation for both the variance and the subdivision application. Again, they are separate applications that will require separate motions, but at this time, staff is eager and willing to take your questions related to both applications. And the applicant is also here as well, once we wrap up our portion of it, to speak on their own behalf and answer any questions you may have for them.
Okay. Questions for staff about the subdivision? I think Councilor Eber, you had several.
I'll go back and just, again, just ask no comment from CDOT.
Correct.
With respect to my question about,
There's an approved access there already.
That's correct.
So they are not proposing to add an access.
it will just have heavier use because it's 2 houses, not 1.
Correct.
Okay. With respect to the question on the parcel size that I had asked, was the parcel, it says here as it was surveyed, it was 2.016 acres. I just want to make sure that that does not include any of the additional land in the right-of-way. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. With respect to the valuation, I just tried real quickly to go on the assessor's webpage. It does not operate right now for some reason. but I was wondering if there was any way, or whether there is any reason that we should call into question the valuation. While you did find it reasonable, it is a year and a half old, and all of our property tax assessments have shown an increase even in the last year and a half. So I question whether or not it should just be, or whether or not the applicant would even agree to a nudge of even something as low as a 5% increase on the valuation reflective of the last year.
Could I just ask relative to that, and maybe this is a question for the applicant, but was it a third-party transaction? Were there family members on either side? Was it, it was a third-party transaction?
Yeah, sorry, but we'll ask that. Sorry, yep. No, I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
This is my
Yeah,
fault,
we'll
sorry.
we'll do that when the applicant comes up. I mean, obviously, whatever, the number has to be the number. It's not just a made-up number, I think. Did you have other, with that, I know you had, did you have another question about the subdivision?
Again, going back to the concept of the code talking about the subdivision allows the subdivision of a parcel. And if you look at the parcel that is on the southern piece, it is not 2 acres. Would there have been a better process that consolidated the two together into one? And I know this is functionally doing that, but in order to meet our code, would it have been better to consolidate them in one lot through a consolidation process and then do a separate subdivision that is where we are today?
I think that does raise an interesting legal question.
Yeah, I can give the planning answer, which is that the subdivision process is a process that's a little bit of a misnomenclature, right? Subdivision is either the splitting of parcels or the consolidation of parcels, right? Sometimes you do more than that in one subdivision application. The minor subdivision process allows for the creation of 2 lots out of parcel or parcels. And so I guess we could amend the code to require a consolidation plat and then a minor subdivision. It just seems like those are unnecessary steps when you can do it in one application.
Well, so I think to Counselor Eber's point, the staff memo quote, and I'm assuming this is a direct quote from the code, quotes section 17-250 as saying it divides a parcel of land, not a parcel or parcels. Uh, 17-250 definitions. Minor subdivision means any division of land that, 1, divides a parcel of land held in single or common ownership into 2 lots or parcels.
I guess.
How does that fit with?
Well, these are 2 parcels. And
Right.
so if the code says that a minor subdivision is one that takes 1 parcel and splits it into 2, this is taking 2 parcels, combining them this way, and then splitting them this way to get enough area. If you were only splitting 1 parcel, they wouldn't be big enough.
So then there would be, just trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together here. So there would be a consolidation plat that would have to be approved and then come back through another minor subdivision application? Essentially creating
That's
again, I'm not-
that's the legal question as to whether that's the way the code's written. I don't know.
Well, and I think that, from my perspective, there's a bit of form over substance type of a thing. I mean, what the explanation you gave, Director, makes sense, but what often happens every time we see specific examples are, this is fine, but it suggests that we ought to make some changes to our code to clarify, to eliminate that confusion, so that there is consistency and that you're not worried about ever getting into that circumstance.
I'll just add, and this is similar to the conversation that we had in afterwards. We should take a moment to describe the difference between a lot and a parcel. A parcel is a division of land for tax purposes or ownership purposes only. You cannot use a parcel as a basis for a building permit in the city. You have to have a subdivision that creates a lot. A lot is different than a parcel. A lot is the product of a subdivision process through a city or a county. All right? So frankly, there could be parcel lines all over the place. There could be 3, 4, 5 parcels on a half acre. We don't really recognize parcels as a meaningful instrument for anything we do. When we subdivide the process, we will clean up those parcels. In essence, eliminate them to create the new lot lines. So I would offer to council, frankly, if there were 3 or 4 more parcels in here, I would recommend the same. I think the single lot parcel designation from 1958 or whenever this was done was not necessarily contemplating, for example, the Calkins subdivision that came before you all those years ago. You know, the larger subdivisions, I guarantee you that had many, many parcels involved. So those kinds of things. My point is, I wouldn't, no one's going to challenge us. I don't think that's what intended. We certainly can clarify that in a future housekeeping amendment. Yeah. But the parcel designation per se is not going to have any standing or relevancy if you deny this and the parcel lines stay. They don't affect anything we do.
Generally speaking, it does feel like our code kind of refers to those terms interchangeably.
Yes.
I would agree with that.
And that's,
I would completely agree with that.
problematic.
And in fact, your definitions.
I was going to say the definitions themselves are problematic on that front.
They are, and in fact, there's not a definition for parcel, there's a definition for parcel unsubdivided.
Well, and
But
that's
that's not how it's referenced
Yeah.
in the code.
Mayor, that's exactly why I raised my comment at this point, because I do think it is, in using the word parcel in our code, it is using an outdated method from what it sounds like city manager is saying, that I want to make sure that we are bulletproof in doing this, and we recognize that distinction, that if it leads to a cleanup, all the better. But I wanted to make sure that for purposes of this, we are comfortable with the idea that this is a property, lack of definition, that is eligible to go through this process that we are calling a minor subdivision, and that we are not hung up on the definition or the use of the word parcel. If we are okay with that, then, I'm okay going forward on that basis. I just was unclear because my legal mind looks at that and says it is a different term and terms have definition, until we had a discussion a long time ago about this method of using parcels versus lots, which I'll be candid and tell you it still doesn't make perfect sense to me, but nonetheless, I understand that we are using lots. And so in all of the people that matter on this, whether it's our city attorney, city manager, our director, and then all of us up here, that we are comfortable with the idea that this is now eligible to go through this minor subdivision process.
And I would just add, so during the discussion, right, the definition for unsubdivided parcel means a parcel, so they use the word in the definition, right, of land that is not identified as a lot, parcel, or tract, again, using the word parcel in the definition.
So it's a parcel if it's not identified as a parcel.
On a record, so if it's not those
That's
things
very-
on a recorded plat and is described by meets and bounds. So what, I think the inaccuracy of the code, right, that City Manager Kramer was referring to, right? The fact that the definition uses the term parcel, I guess, as a director making an interpretation, if I had to, a parcel is land that's not on a subdivision, check, this is not on a subdivision, and it's described by meets and bounds, check. It meets those two requirements. Therefore, it would be a parcel that would be subject to the process that we have for creating two lots, which is the minor subdivision.
So, moving forward, where are these parcels actually even defined? If they're, City Manager, you said they're used for tax purposes.
Or
How, I guess what my ultimate question is, how do we make sure that this gets cleaned up?
through the subdivision process.
yeah.
There is nothing stopping a property owner today. I'm not giving anybody ideas. Any property owner can right now go down to the county assessor and record their lot into 20 parcels. We don't care. Knock yourself out. They have no bearing on us. Those kinds of unregulated recordations are all over the place, with especially in the first half of the 20th century and the century before that. Modern subdivision regulations really helped stop or curb that sort of unregulated process. So there are all sorts of unplatted parcels still left in Cherry Hills Village. They still exist.
I mean, no offense, I just want to make sure we're paying taxes on the property. We need, if they're used for tax purposes, I want
But
to
they are
make
used
sure
for
that
tax
they're
purposes.
in
They
the
are
tax-
recorded at the county assessor's office.
Okay.
Well, I would
So-
sit back also, though, and say why it's important to clean it up and make it clear. And like I say, it may not make any difference to us now, but those bozos down in
Yes.
Denver under the dome who are constantly doing things, and right now we don't recognize their constitutional authority over us, but to the extent someday they pass things that could conceivably have an impact, and what's in our code could conceivably have an impact on us, we need to get our nomenclature correct. I think it's exactly
agree.
right in terms of what we're doing here tonight, and it meets that. But we've identified that we need to
Agreed.
clean that up.
And
I think.
And I will say, if council wanted to go down the road of requiring a consolidation first, we're right back to where we're in the same conundrum, because if we use these definitions as outlined in this section, the code also then doesn't provide for a parcel consolidation process.
Right.
So I guess
So
maybe what I
we
would be
have
more
no
comfortable
way
with.
to
yeah.
combine
It's only
What
a
I would
lot
be more
control.
comfortable with is somewhere explicitly stated in the agreement that parcel A and parcel B, as they are currently defined, will go away.
And that's what the plat says.
Correct. Yeah, so there's legal descriptions for parcel A and parcel B,
Yep.
right? And that's on the front page on the
Yes.
left-hand side, right? So those meets and bounds legal description, assuming recordation, approval and recordation of the plat, go away, and the legal description then becomes Lot 1 of the Wittenberg minor subdivision.
Okay, and there's no associated parcels.
Correct.
Okay. That I can live with. I actually have a few questions about the easements, and I think you all know that I'm particularly sensitive to the easements. Okay, and these are mostly going to be, I think, for the city attorney. So the first question, well, actually, we'll start here, Director Workman, with you. The first question is, the utilities have approved the easements. Really? Excel is fine with their utility easement being below their driveway?
Correct.
I mean, okay, because Excel usually is like, you can't do anything in our easement. You can't put a tree, you can't build anything in our easement.
How do I want to answer this? Yeah, I was going to say, when it comes to
Well,
a
a driveway
structure.
is a permanent structure.
That's correct. They will generally allow landscaping, or it's very common to have driveways or things like that over an Excel easement. They will get access to their equipment through their easement if they need it, regardless of what's there. But yes, we do have a referral comment letter from Excel that says that they have no objections to the existing or proposed easements.
Okay, good luck with that, is all I have to tell you. On the notes section on the front of this page, this says, so the question is, who holds that easement? Number 9 says, the public utility easement dedicated to the city by this plat is for the purposes of installing, operating, blah, blah, blah. When you turn it over, there is no public utility easement dedicated to the city. There is an easement shown, 20-foot wide Public Service Company of Colorado easement per recording such and such. Who's Public Service Company? Okay, that's Excel. So there are no public utility easements dedicated to the city, and are they,
That's a pretty standard plat note.
okay.
Right. Yeah, that's just you see that on a lot, that it's there so that if there are any depicted, they're not missed.
Okay. And then the existing easement was recorded, and this is just maintaining that existing easement. So anything like the conveyance of the easement is probably handled as part of that recorded,
Yes.
and we're sure that it was actually done, because in so many cases it was not.
We checked the title work.
Okay, and it was conveyed to Public Service Company of Colorado.
Yes,
Okay,
yes. But I understand
as
the
you kn-
sensitivity.
Yes.
And it's very good to ask these questions.
okay. Those are my questions. Other questions for staff? Okay. Then we will have the applicant come up. If you please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. You're welcome to make any presentation that you'd like. And then if people have questions for the applicant, we'll do that next.
Joe Wittenberg, 989 Leiden Street, Denver. I mostly would like to answer questions.
Oh, okay.
I think
Great.
staff did a great job of presenting, but a couple comments that have been already asked, questions that have already been asked that I'd like to address. First off, the valuation from Arapahoe County. I have a tax statement from 2025 paid for 2026, tax year 2025 payable 2026, which values the larger parcel at $1,397,000, 858. So about 1.4 million, and then the smaller parcel is valued at $500. So about 2/3 of the valuation we had because of the recent purchase price.
Thank you.
Another comment on the parcel conversation. Originally, when we were trying to create 2 platted buildable lots, we tried to go through the process of the minor lot adjustment. And the legal interpretation we got from staff and from the city attorney, who actually I spoke to Joshua Myers, I don't know his role here, but he said the pluralization is the same as the singular in this code. So parcel equals parcels and lot equals lots. That helps clarify.
Okay. I think we probably still have some work to do on our end to clean that up, to be more explicit, but okay, thank you. Do people have other questions for the applicant?
Mayor, may I?
Yes.
In looking at the methodology one, the Centennial model, I just want to confirm where I'm going here, and that is, the bottom line of this is that it says estimated land value per acre turns out to be the $37,500 under that math formula. Am I correct in understanding, because this is a 2-acre parcel, that the city's going to be receiving twice that $37,000 because it is creating 2 1-acre lots, each of 1 acre, and each acre is $37,500?
That is not.
Or is this an incremental?
No, the code requires a 7.5% dedication or fee in lieu thereof of the totality of the site. So the 2 acres. So the 2 acres, right, the 2.1 million divided by the 2.016 acres, that gives you the value per acre. That's the value that's used for the whole property.
So what you're looking at is they calculated the acreage that would be required, and then they multiplied that times the value per acre to come up with a number.
I think I can clarify.
Please do.
The total persons for the 2-lot subdivision was calculated based on the total acreage of the 2 existing parcels. So that is the number of persons that will be occupying the 2 parcels in the end. So it's about 3 people per platted lot. And then the average land value is, again, just based off that purchase price and the total acreage. So it's actually taking into account both of the pieces of land. If you were being less conservative, one might say that you actually only have to account for 3 people for the added 1 acre, which would be half the amount, not double. But in an effort to be as conservative as possible, I was trying to come up with a calculation that would not be deemed greedy.
I appreciate
you.
that. Thank you.
Other questions?
The only other question, when you mentioned the 1.397, almost 1.4, that was for the entire parcel, was it? Or, I'm sorry, the bigger parcel, and then 500 was for the smaller parcel?
Correct.
So if you combine those two, at least the 25 payable 26 number came out to be 1.45 million.
$500.
Oh, 500, sorry.
Yeah, just 500.
1,450 in essence.
3 digits.
So nothing, basically.
So it would essentially be it would be a 1/3 reduction of this calculation if we started at 1.4 rather than 2.1. That's-
Okay, I appreciate that.
I can't do it in my head.
Thank you. I think that's it for me.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Seeing none, thank you both for being here so much. That's it for that. We'll move on to public comment, if there's anyone signed up. Great, and the same public comment, if you were here earlier, applies. You'll have 5 minutes. When you come up, please state your name and address for the record. Direct your comments to the council and not to other members of the audience. And please, everyone, be respectful. No cheering, booing, clapping. Joe Wittenberg. Oh, okay. There you go. So okay. So there are, seeing no other public. Okay. I should read the name first before I go there. Okay, so then we will move on to council discussion. Did you, Councilor Robinson? Go ahead. Okay, well, I just have one comment. Because a variance request is a very fact-specific consideration, I really appreciate the effort that was made by the applicant to put this model together. And I am comfortable with this in the context of this particular application. I want to be very clear moving forward, though, that my opinion is not to be construed as approving this exact model of calculation in any other circumstance, particularly the 0.006 acres of open space and parks per resident. I suspect Cherry Hills Village is actually much higher than that on average. So I just want to, for the record, be clear that I believe this is a reasonable model for this application, but is not, in my mind, intended to necessarily set a standard moving forward.
Yeah,
Councilor Robinson.
First, I want to thank you for the care that you put into this and let you know that you are in the very center, could not be a more center lot in terms of my district, District 1. So you're in the very heart of District 1. And appreciate the care that you put into this and the thoughtfulness. And I just want to echo what the mayor said, is that we are going through a process to look at this issue, and I am supportive of approving this as it stands, but I do not think that this should set a pattern or for how we look at these going forward.
Yes.
And I would,
Mayor Pro Tem.
I want to echo that as well. I mean, I feel the same way, case specific. I would also say, just like when we said we want to clean up going forward after this is done, I also think that going forward, we should at least evaluate how we assess property values. Is it going to be the tax roll? Is it going to be the most recent sale within 6 months, within a year, within 2 years, within 5 years? Arm's length sale, there should be some criteria established, and if there is, I apologize, but I'm not aware. I do think that we ought to be looking at that as we go forward and clean that up. And then 3, with regard to the resolution for the variance, I'd just point out that there's a typo. Recital 3 and 5 are identical. So take out one of them and renumber the rest.
Okay. Counselor Eber, any further comments?
I want to echo and say that the people before me, 3 of 4 of you have said exactly where I was going, is that, you know, the uniqueness of a variance by definition is that this is a special case-specific example where our number under our methodology in the past of a straight application of the provision of the code rendered a number that was possibly not realistic to the actual impact that would come from this one single subdivision. We are in the midst of analysis of our figures and our methodology, but the uniqueness of this one and the method that you all came up with that our staff looked at and found to be a reasonable method of determining that worked in this situation, and I think it was a reasonable way of addressing this situation. But like others on the panel here, I would not say that we in any way are adopting a centennial model and that it is appropriate for any analyses that may come up in the future. So while we may move forward on this one, we'll find out here in just a few minutes, but it is important to note that that is not necessarily the methodology that we are going to use going forward.
Mayor, may I make a supplemental comment?
Sorry, let me just ask Counselor Heller, do you have any comments?
Just thanks to the applicant and staff for making what is a complex issue easy to follow. All of my questions were asked and answered, Mayor. I do want to emphasize Earl's point relative to valuations. I think that does need some work as well.
Thank you.
Not for this applicant, but go forward.
Yeah, thank you. Counselor Robinson?
Yes, an important thing for me, too, was the unanimous recommendation by the PRTC. So I just want to recognize the PRTC and the effort and attention they
Just for clarity, the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Planning and zoning, yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry, yeah, planning and, I mean.
The other one, yeah.
The other one,
They will take the credit, but.
not the art commission, yeah, the planning and zoning. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, well, I think that concludes our discussion and public comments. And so, do I close the public hearing before or after we vote? After we vote, okay. So I would entertain motions in this order, please.
Okay. I move to approve Resolution 11, Series 2, 2026, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Cherry Hills Village approving a variance request to reduce the fee in lieu of land dedication required by Section 17-3-420 of the Municipal Code for a minor subdivision at 4650 South University Boulevard. Subject to the change as discussed.
Which?
Is that adequate?
Oh, yes, removing the duplicate whereas, yes, okay. Is there's a second by Counselor Eber. Will the clerk please call the roll?
This is just a voice vote.
Oh, goodness gracious, I'm getting them totally wrong today. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. That passes unanimously. And then before we move on to the second motion, could I also, just given our lengthy lots and parcels conversation, the motion says create 2 lots from 1 parcel, and it's actually 2 parcels. So, yes, whoever makes the motion, if you could just say 2 lots from 2 parcels, please.
I'll jump in. I move to approve Resolution 12, Series 2026, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Cherry Hills Village approving a minor subdivision to create 2 lots from 2 parcels at 4650 South University Boulevard.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? That also passes unanimously. Congratulations. Thank you for being here. And I will close the public hearing at 7:53 PM. Okay, we will move on to reports. I just have briefly wanted to mention, I think we've had an update from Mr. Balmer about kind of what's going on at the Capitol. There has not been any further movement on the lot splitting bill or the minimum lot size bill. Those have passed the House and that's it so far. They have not been scheduled in Senate committee. I keep okay. I keep checking every day, and I suspect they're going to be tied up with the long bill for a bit. But we're trying to stay on top of that.
Mayor,
Yes.
just as a follow-up onto that real quick, I do want to give council a heads up. This is hot off the presses. We were just talking about this. Listening to the conversation tonight about the subdivision process and the access easement that is going through, it became like a little light bulb, similar to the one I think that Paul and the mayor had regarding our zoning of schools. We probably need to add a frontage requirement onto every lot when you think about the 2,000 square foot lot requirement.
Yes.
So we need to add that to the list. And we probably need to have a different frontage requirement for each zone district.
Yes, and we need to review that bill. I believe that it doesn't allow you to have frontage requirements, but we should still do it.
Nonetheless.
Yes, we should still do it.
Yes. I mean, how can
Yes.
they, anyway,
I agree, but that's a good point.
yeah.
Please add that to the ever-growing list of things that we would like to consider.
There's our housekeeping items, and then there's our semi-crisis items as a result of everything happening at the state legislature.
Yeah.
This goes on that list.
I think I wasn't necessarily going to mention this right now, but I'll throw it out there just as a nugget for future thought. The Metro Mayor's Caucus met last week. And we were having discussions about various things, mostly related to housing. And I forget exactly how it came up in discussion, but in talking about those particular bills and the potentially ridiculous impacts they would have in Cherry Hills Village, one of the other mayors suggested, and I think it's actually a very legitimate idea, that we consider an affordable housing impact fee because these bills do allow the assessment of impact fees. And I think we know that not many people acquire property in Cherry Hills Village with the intention of building affordable housing. So I think as we're looking at our impact fees associated with subdivision, I know we're specifically looking at parks and open space right now, but I think we could consider an affordable housing impact fee tied to subdivision at where that money then is provided to either our regional partners or Arapahoe County or something along those lines, so that we are contributing in our own way to addressing the issue of affordable housing in the community. So,
I think that'd be a great idea, and it's not unlike when we were looking at over there on Monaco or whatever that road is over there, and I said, hey, let's go talk to these guys about buying a unit or doing something with a unit for some of our teachers here. It's the same thing. There are things that we can do so that, when someone says, well, what are you doing? That they've asked you specifically, what is Cherry Hills doing? Well, this is what we're doing. This is what we can do without violating our principles and/or our rights to live the way we want to live. And I think that's a great idea.
so
All of those are, I think.
maybe add that to the growing list of things to discuss at a future point as well. And then the last thing I wanted to bring up, I think everyone on council received an email from our parks, one of our Parks, Trails, and Recreation commissioners, asking us to reconsider the question of whether commissioners could participate in commission meetings remotely. And it's not on the agenda for tonight, but I guess that is something the council could consider if we wanted to. It was discussed when we discussed remote participation. At the time, the council opted not to do that, but is that something that the council would like to reconsider? Just sort of a...
I would be willing to reconsider it. I thought that his rationale and email was really reasonable. And his suggestion was much, I think it would happen less frequently than what we've envisioned for council.
Okay.
I would be willing to discuss it.
Okay.
I thought, especially because, like we said, and I know I said a few times, if there's I feel like everybody's opinions are valuable. And if there's a way to hear it, and this particular gentleman was going to be gone, but he really wanted to participate because he knew that there was a lot on the agenda. I think it's in May, right? Didn't he say?
He did say, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, we can't do it that fast, unfortunately. But, I think that the rest of the commission would probably really like to hear his input.
Okay. Councilor Robinson?
Yeah, I was one of those opposed to any remote participation, and I'm changing my opinion on that.
Okay.
Having participated, it worked well for me last council session, and so I think I would be willing to reconsider.
Reconsider? Okay.
Yeah, well, to the extent that reconsider means, hey, let's take it up again and have a full-fledged discussion and
Yes.
come to an opinion, I'd be happy to do that again. But I'd
It
want to
does
hear.
not mean approve it right now.
Exactly. Well, what it also means is that I'd want to hear the same issues and the same things discussed again as to a full-blown discussion, and then we consider it again and then decide.
Okay. Councilor Eber, Councilor Heller? Yeah, Councilor Heller?
Yeah, same here. I would just ask that staff either bring benchmarking or refresh our memories on benchmarking for commissioners for other jurisdictions. Are they allowed to, just as a point of reference, not just positive? But yeah, discussing it sounds fine. I do think that big picture of remote call-ins needs to be, tempered down a little.
Okay. All right, well, it sounds like there's...
That was an attempt at humor, Mayor.
Yeah. It sounds like there is interest in at least considering that again, and I agree with Mayor Pro Tem that we need to have that discussion again and refresh our memories about what the pros and cons of the conversation were at the time, to make sure that we're doing that. But, okay, so that concludes my report. Councilor Heller, let's start with you.
Okay, I've got two items this evening. One, I sent to city manager and clerk the Centennial Airport noise roundtable notice that our Part 150 noise exposure maps were filed in the Federal Register. Have the citation if anybody's interested in looking. Comments are open till June 2nd of 2026. These are voluntary, but the airport, in this case, did file, and it has two parts. One is what I already mentioned, the noise exposure maps themselves. And then the second is remediations that might be recommended. This doesn't really directly impact Cherry Hills Village, but it's good background, and I think it's a good thing to watch. And it doesn't impact us so much because it's much about flight patterns, which we all know and I've reported on, but more about conforming building in the approach and departure areas of the airport. And that includes avoiding building, but if doing so, noise abatement, construction features, and the like, which really isn't all that applicable to us. But nonetheless, it's there if anyone has any interest. Comment period again through June 2nd. And then secondly, I just wanted to mention and thank Jay and staff. We did have a couple of members of an HOA in my district approach us a couple months ago about improving pedestrian safety, at least potentially, in the intersection of Dahlia and Oxford. Staff studied that and came up with a really interesting proposal. Not going to be implemented yet. There needs to be more input from the community, but that met our main criteria, or Jay's main criteria of no physical change to the intersection. So doing it mostly with crosswalk painting and a painted aisle, I think a really innovative idea that's responsive if everybody in the area, again, is receptive to it. I'll leave it to, I can't see if Jay is there, if there's anything I got wrong or he wants to add, but again, wanted to thank him and staff for the creative solution.
So Dahlia and Oxford, isn't there already a crosswalk there?
Well, that you know how large that intersection
Yeah.
is. So we have been meeting with residents off and on for years and with school bus stops there and those things. There's a crosswalk that goes north-south, but there is nothing east-west in that intersection.
Okay.
So we worked with our traffic engineer to come up with some possible solutions to increase pedestrian safety, as Councilor Heller said, without changing anything physically. So, and we'll send that out, and your neighborhood will also see it to say, hey, this is our idea. If it doesn't work, it's just paint. But our traffic engineer really thinks that it would have the potential to increase pedestrian safety because of the number of kids going through that intersection on a regular basis. So it's it puts a false island to the northeast of the intersection to make the intersection feel smaller for pedestrians. It also has a pedestrian lane in the westbound lane of Oxford going to Dahlia to narrow that section again and give pedestrians and bicyclists their own lane. There is 20 feet on each side of that island, so there's plenty of room. So
I think it also helps a little bit with, as you're going northbound, the stop sign is before the westbound part of Oxford. You have that, and build up a little bit of steam, and it's a blind corner. I think it helps with that a little bit too.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, obviously, that is like 3 houses away from my house. And I know people in the community would love to know more.
Yep. No, and that was our thought. And Dave and I talked about that we will send out letters and ask questions before we do anything.
Yeah, nothing's approved.
Yep, nothing's approved and nothing, I haven't sent my staff out there yet. And if necessary, we can do a full-blown community meeting, but I think because it's so minor, we'll try to just do it with, through the mail
Okay.
and some signs on the street.
And Mayor, that's what I meant by haven't judged the community's interest in it or yet. Maybe I had the words wrong, but completely agree.
Yeah, I guess I am sensitive to changes that seem to be top-down driven as opposed to bottom-up driven. And so I know you mentioned that you have some people in your neighborhood who've brought it up to you. I'd be curious if if the people in that immediate vicinity have, because I know the people along Dahlia.
My neighborhood, my District 3, so it's a different HOA than mine.
Okay, yeah, so the south of
Yes.
Oxford is in District 3, yes, and the north side is in District 6.
That's right. And as we talked about with, in the first presentation of the evening, went right to staff with that, obviously.
Yeah. So that's just whenever things come across as, hey, we have this idea, and it doesn't feel like it's come from the residents, I think that's where things have a tendency to get sideways. So I just want to be very careful about how we proceed.
Yep, completely agree. And just to reiterate, the residents raised the issue. That went to staff, and staff came up with the solution. So.
All right. Councilor Ebert.
I have no report tonight.
Mayor Pro Tem Holland.
Just a couple of things. The Devonshire HOA has reached out, I guess, inquired. They've got a speeding issue in which we know that that is a, enclosed area. So my guess is that the speeders that they're dealing with there are their own neighbors and the people that live there, which I've talked to them about. People are, I guess, rightfully reticent about doing what the cranky old guy at 3 Vista Road does, i.e. yours truly, which is to literally go out there and wave down cars and have them slow down, which causes 3 or 4 people on your street to get pissed off at you. But the bulk of the rest of them are really, really happy when you do that. But they're inquiring about the possibility of reducing the speed limit from 25 to 20 and putting up signs. I've reached out to Director Goldie and Chief Lyons. We're having some discussion about that. The effectiveness, the pros and cons, can you do it, how do you do it, should you do it, and hopefully we'll be able to have some conversation about that in the next couple of days, so we can get back with them and talk to them about it. Again, given the fact that that is just an enclosed loop, the odds are that it's their own neighbors that are the culprits.
Well, and
there.
they even acknowledged that in their own HOA newsletter that they attached
that
to the
is-
email. It said,
That is
it's
true.
our residents, so.
The other thing-
They've seen their faces through the windshield, and they know who they are.
I know, well, then, hey, just go out there and flag them down. The other thing, which seems to pop up all the time, but I mean, even I've noticed it, and I very rarely get people asking and talking to me about this, and people are talking to me about it and saying, what are you doing about it? I mean, the e-bikes, the motorized bikes are everywhere, and it is almost like I see more e-bikes on the trails on Quincy than I do cars. I mean, literally on Saturday, I thought, what is there a rally going on? What is going on here? I think, and like I say, when I start hearing about it from neighbors, because I think I have the least contacts in the community of anybody on council, that means it's getting ready to start to really rise to an issue. So I think we really got to figure out what we're going to do about it, if anything, or otherwise just not do anything about it.
Well, I mean,
May I?
yeah, go ahead.
I join in, I'll supplement my no report comment with this, is that I have noticed since the last meeting when we talked a little bit about the comments that I had about e-bikes, is I'm seeing youth e-bike riders using the Quincy path and the Holly path because it gets them off the road. And ordinarily, we would probably say that's a great idea. But for, as I think Chief and all of us have talked about, there really is only one place that they should be, and that is on the road.
Well, we
And
have
so-
no motorized vehicles on our trails, so.
Well, that's,
they're
well,
not-
but I'm saying that that's the difference, that we deem that to be an on-street trail, but no less it is a trail, and we do not allow anything motorized. So it puts us in the situation of going to our constituents and saying, your 12-year-old can't be on that isolated on-street trail. They have to be right on the road next to all the cars that makes them very uncomfortable. And so we do need to figure out whether or not something gets done about on-street trails as a way and keeping, so I'll just follow Earl's comment that those continue to be out here, and I didn't raise them tonight because they're omnipresent probably for all of us.
Okay.
That's the end of my report.
Counselor Robinson.
No report tonight.
Counselor Fisher.
I just wanted to mention that I've got the meeting of the Highline Canal Collaborative this week, so we will see if they've got any news to share with us. But I'm excited to share our pond news with them.
It's also the state of the canal after the forum meeting, and so I don't know if any other council members are planning to attend that. Councilwoman Fisher, I agree with you in the forum meeting, and I will also be curious to see if they bring up all of the changes to the new stormwater input regulations that they are wanting to do, which, as I've already told the council, is going to delay our ability to sign, not our ability, we could sign the deals now if we wanted. I would strongly recommend signing on the dotted line for anything when they don't even know what the rules are going to be. So, and related to that, Brian Weimer, the Public Works Director for Arapahoe County, announced his retirement. So that process may get delayed even further without somebody to run it. So we'll see.
And you might as well continue. Now it's on to you.
One quick update. The work related to the Nexus study is underway. You heard from Connor Bice at the last meeting. Emily, Manager Black, and I have been sending information to him and his team in order for them to start to perform their analysis. Manager Black and I have a meeting with them tomorrow morning to continue our conversation and their work on task 1. We are also doing a project introductory meeting series, if you will, with PTRC starting this Thursday, and next Tuesday we will do a similar project introduction with the Planning and Zoning Commission. So we are all steam ahead with the Nexus study. And that's all I have for updates.
Thank you. Director Newman.
I did want to let you know that the relief judge RFQ closed yesterday morning. We got 7 qualified responses. Judge Elman has selected 4 to move on to the interview stage, so we will be getting that done hopefully Friday or Monday, and then we will have, with a little luck, 2 candidates to move forward for council approval.
Were any of the relief judge candidates also candidates in the first process?
2 of them were.
Okay, thank you. Director Goldie.
We have in our possession a new footbridge for Quincy Farm. I'm in the process of coordinating the removal of the old bridge with our crews and the company that's building the abutments, and then a separate company to bring that bridge on site and install it with a crane for us. So that's still going to take probably a couple months to get done with construction schedules of some of our subs. So it's moving along, though.
Great news. Chief Lyons.
Good evening. Actually, I have a handful of things. One is just a couple updates. One, the Citizens Academy started last week. We had our first class, and I know that you're as excited and proud of our residents as I am when they engage and commit to 10 weeks of hanging out with me on Thursday nights and a couple Saturday mornings. But it's a very excited group, a very engaged group, and again, just really care about this community. So it's neat to see. An update on our use of force scenario at Swedish Hospital. The officer involved in that has returned to work. She came back last week. There are still 2 parallel investigations underway that have not concluded, so I'll update you on those. I'm guessing within the next 30 to 60 days. That takes some time to move through the process. I suspect you saw a post from our department last week related to our certification on dealing with folks with either invisible or developmental disabilities. We are the first law enforcement agency in Colorado to have that certification through Culture City. Not only is there training associated to that, but there's equipment that is assigned to every patrol vehicle in the way of what they call sensory bags that have certain materials that calm folks that have sensory issues or have those disabilities that may not be obvious to the responding officer. So we're really proud of our commitment to address those gaps in dealing with all populations, in particular the sensitive populations. And then related to the e-bikes. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Your observation matches mine. However, I will tell you that in the last 2 weeks, we've had the most enforcement on e-bikes than we've had all year. We've actually impounded 6 bikes. We've had parents come and collect bikes and a couple citations issued. So just to reaffirm this piece of information, because I myself, looking at my own flyer, I'm like, it's really kind of confusing. E-bikes are not prohibited from Cherry Hills Village, and so you should expect to see them, to Councilmember Eber's point. Certain bikes are prohibited from sidewalks and from the roadway. Those are the e-dirt bikes. Those tend to be the more egregious violators. Those actually are required, the riders are required to have a helmet, to have a driver's license for that vehicle to be registered and insured, and those are much easier for us to enforce. The Class 1 and Class 2 bikes, which make up the majority of the bikes, are in fact allowed on sidewalks. They're just not allowed on trails. They're allowed on bike lanes and sidewalks. And to the average 12 or 13-year-old, they don't know where on Quincy it turns from a bike lane to a sidewalk to a trail, and similarly on Holly. It's off-street trail, which to an average person looks like a sidewalk. So we have done more education on that issue than on the enforcement. We recognize that they can be dangerous and that there are requirements that need to be met. The e-dirt bikes, again, that's easier, and we're more heavy-handed in terms of how we deal with those, because there are state law requirements that need to be met, not just a city code prohibiting its use on trails or in our parks. So thank you for sharing that. We'll continue our efforts on that issue. We certainly expect that with the warmer months, that's going to increase. And we'll do our part enforcing both the city municipal code, but also state law related to the e-dirt bike. So thanks for bringing it up. But I wanted you to know that we've actually taken more enforcement now that they're out again. And I think more than anything, we've recognized that there's a large misunderstanding, and it's not an egregious attempt to violate city code. So that's it for me. Thank you.
All right, thank you. City Clerk.
It's event season, so I just wanted to run down the list for everybody. April 22nd, the Art Commission is having an artist talk here at City Hall. April 25th is Drug Take Back. Usually the police department sets out in the parking lot. May 2nd is the PTRC scavenger hunt in John Mead Park. May 6th is our Board and Commission event, and we have a good number of RSVPs so far, so we're excited about that. May 16th is spring cleanup at the Public Works facility in Sheridan. Executive Director of the CML, Bomer, mentioned the various CML events coming up in May and June. You also all got a invitation for the state of the county from Arapahoe County in June 16th. If anyone wants to register for the CML events or the Arapahoe County event, just let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. City Attorney. City Manager.
Yeah, real quick, Director Workman, did you have final March building permit numbers?
Yes.
A lot.
We do. Yes. So our short break from the insanity of building permits is officially over in March. March, we had the second most number of new permits submitted that we've been able to track since we've had our new system. So over the last 3 years, this last March was the second most new permits we've had submitted. There was 104 new permits submitted last month. So here we go again.
Those are mostly 104 houses also being torn down.
It sure feels that way, yes.
Vacant lots.
Yeah. So we are still in negotiation with Safe Built to get some help for planning review of building permits. But it appears that 26 will be another busy year for building permits. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Werman. I did want to highlight, I know that I believe council's heard about all of this, but it can't hurt to bring it up officially in case someone missed it. We did hire our communications and outreach coordinator position from CML, and Kevin was very nice and cordial about that today. I was a little sheepish as I saw him, but he was professional as one would expect. We're very excited. I think she's going to be excellent. Denise White is her name. Given the presence that we had tonight, and it just reinforces the need to have. I wouldn't have had to have dealt with the person asking if he could come put the camera back there. Yes, I know. Oh, she could have handled that. Anyway, that's a minor issue. She comes well equipped, very accomplished, seems to have a lot of wisdom, and I think for a city that is trying to establish a new communications program, she's going to be so well suited to get us off the ground and headed in the right direction. So I'm looking forward to that. I believe her first day is April 27th. Thank you. So there is a chance that we will be canceling the April 21st meeting. I just need to circle back with the mayor later this week just to triple check on that. But we don't have anything on the agenda right now, but so don't erase it quite yet, but there's a chance. The CCMA conference, CCCMA, City and County of Colorado Managers Association, or maybe it's Colorado City and County Managers Association. Way too many C's.
Couple M's and an A.
Their conference is next week on Thursday and Friday, or Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I'll be there for that. And then coincidentally, just the way the calendar worked out, the following a week and a half later is the American Planning Association conference that I'll be attending as well. So 2 straight conferences for me. Also, as a reminder, the board, if we do cancel the April 21st meeting, we won't have the opportunity to remind you in person about the board and commission volunteer appreciation event. So go ahead. Well, I know, but then if somebody forgot, and then they get to May 5th, they're like, oh my gosh, I forgot I already made plans. So I'm just trying to make sure everybody remembers that we have that on the agenda. We have a lot of RSVPs, right? Yeah.
Wonderful. All right. Well, if there is nothing else, motion to adjourn. All right. At 8:24. Thanks, Dave. Safe travels.
So our goal, you see how it's like that? I think we've got a way.
Bye, Dave. Thank you.
See you, Dave.
Set up a separate laptop, have this monitor just be on the statue, one person, so you can see their.